Welcome to the Underground Dhamma podcast, episode 9. Welcome everyone who's been on this journey with us, and welcome new listeners that we may have out there. My name is Juan, and I'm here joined with Joana. Hello, Joana.
Hi, Juan.
Hi there. So, Joana, we have been starting every week these last 3 episodes with a Zen Koan. Are you ready?
Oh, sure.
Perfect. So not all koans are going to be direct questions where you have to answer for us. There'll be situations where a Zen master did answer, but I would like to know your answer before we hear his or hers.
Okay.
So this one comes from the 6th patriarch, Huineng. Do you know who Huineng is, Joana?
No,
So you know the story of Bodhidharma going to the king in China and then telling him, I don't know, when the king asked him who was standing before him?
Yes, I remember that story.
So he went on to, after he left that king, he went to a cave and meditated for 9 years, they say. And, I've told you that I suspect he was not just some ascetic, self-torture person who wanted to sit. He was probably traveling the jhanas and deep meditation, teaching all types of aliens and devas and gods. So
yes, I remember that. When you first told me that, I was like, what?
I haven't heard anyone say that specifically, but come on now. Buddhists don't self-torture. And the Buddha said when they told them, hey, your monks live in luxury, trying to disparage them. And the Buddha answered, yeah, my monks do live in luxury. They live in the luxury of the 1st jhana, the 2nd jhana, the 3rd jhana, and the 4th jhana. So I'm sure Bodhidharma was living in luxury in his Zen meditation as he faced the wall for 9 years. But
wow.
After a while, there was someone with a problem of life and death. So they went up to him. It was Eka, the 2nd patriarch. So in Zen, Chinese Zen, they're seen as 6 main patriarchs, starting with Bodhidharma when he arrived from India to China. Then there was a student that went to Bodhidharma who had a problem, and Bodhidharma kind of solved his problem by helping him see through his delusion. And it went on for 5 patriarchs, and then there was this little boy who was he was poor, and he had to chop wood and carry wood and deliver it to people to make money for him and his mom. And he heard the Diamond Sutra. Remember we were talking about in our conversation about this Diamond Sutra?
Yes, I remember. You said it was the Mahayana that wrote the Diamond Sutra.
Yes, it's from the Mahayana tradition. So it was a monk from the Mahayana tradition. And, they always say that whatever teaching they have, it's from the Buddha, because that's who their teacher was. So that's what they say. And this is a deep sutra. All it's doing is showing you how there is no existence here or anywhere, and everything is empty. And but empty doesn't mean like there's nothing there. But he heard a line from it. I forget the exact line, but he got like a glimpse of awakening. He got a little glimpse, and in Zen, they call it a little satori. And satori means like a breakthrough, penetrating reality to its deepest core, just getting a little glimpse of that. And so he went to a monastery. He asked the guy, where did you learn this? He said, at this monastery. So he ran there. And the Zen master at that monastery said, what are you doing here? He goes, I want to learn, the Dhamma. And he goes, well, you're a poor barbarian. What do you think a barbarian from the north is going to be doing, learning Dhamma? and the Huineng, this little boy, told him, and when we are speaking of Buddha Dhamma, your own Buddha Dhamma within you, it doesn't care if you're from the north, the west, the south, or the east. And then the Zen master is like, damn, this guy's deep. But he didn't say anything because he didn't want to make anyone jealous. So he said, all right, go work the rice fields. And so he was working out there in the Zen monastery. And then while he was working there, he saw these 2 monks who were arguing with each other. They're arguing. They're looking at this pole with a flag. and the flag was waving and moving. And then one guy was saying, "You're wrong. It's the wind that is moving." And then the other guy was saying, "No, you're the wrong one. It's really the flag that is moving." And the little boy Hoinang was walking around there, and then he went up to them and he answered what the real reality was. What do you think he said, or what would you say?
I would have said both of them. Both the wind and the flag are moving. They're dancing together.
Yes, there's no separation, right?
Yeah.
Well, Hoinang said, "It is the mind that is moving." And they both like stopped and they're like dumbfounded, because it's true. It's really just the mind that is moving. There is no wind, there is no flag. It's just all the mind creating this construct. Yeah, that's how the monks were.
Yeah, but, especially hearing it from a little boy. How old was he?
I would say like around 6 or 7.
Oh my God.
But there's a whole sutra called the Platform Sutra, and that is all the writings of the tales that Hoinang did. He wrote it himself, supposedly, and it's pretty good. He gives his story, and then he goes on to become the 6th patriarch with a poetry reading. There was a poetry reading, and there was this main disciple, the highest disciple, and he wanted to. The master said, "I'm going to have to pass the robe and the bowl." So you know how Zen started, Joana?
No, how did it start?
So they say that the Buddha was giving a Dharma teaching, and Mahakassapa, who was you can call him the father of the Sangha, because after the Buddha went into Parinibbana, it was Mahakassapa who took charge and set up the Buddhism as we know it, like putting all the sutras together and putting all the Vinaya disciplinary code for the monks together. And he made it last, helped make it last. And but Mahakassapa, he was also known as like the most ascetic of the monks, the foremost in asceticism, kind of how they say about Bodhidharma. He was an ascetic because he sat for 9 years. So supposedly, according to Mahayana tradition, the Buddha just, instead of giving a sermon, he waved a flower in his fingers. And Mahakassapa, from that seeing that experience, he woke up, became an arahant, according to his tradition.
What?
And the Buddha smiled as soon as the Mahakassapa became an arahant. And according to the Zen tradition, that was the first transmission of this awakening, of the goal of Zen. And it came without words or scriptures. And so that's what the tradition was based on. They call it this sacred teaching outside the scriptures, not reliant on words or images.
But through experience?
Yeah, except they say pointing directly at the mind of man or woman. So you can see your own nature, which is experience, that's all there is. And from then on, they passed since Mahakassapa was known as the most ascetic, that was because also the Buddha saw that Mahakassapa, every time they would give him new robes, he would never use them. So he was like, he lived on they call it throwaway rags, and he lived in the woods. That's tough for monks now, and even back then, because monks wanted to live in the city. They wanted to get the best robes. They wanted to get the best food. And here Mahakassapa was happy in the wilderness wearing throwaway rags.
Mahakassapa was hardcore, huh?
Yeah, he was hardcore. That's why there's I think there's groups called Hardcore Zen, that's what they're talking about. So, but the Buddha, he knew that Mahakassapa would not get new robes. So what do you think the Buddha did?
He gave them to him himself.
Yes, not only did he give him a robe and a bowl, he gave him his own robe and bowl.
Whoa, he could not say no.
No, he could not. And he loved it. He loved it, as much as you can, dispassionately. But he loved it, and it was
that was a true honor.
It was a true honor. And, that's why he's the father of the Sangha. Everyone respected him. No one can mess with him. And that bowl and robe, every time there was a Dharma transmission of in Zen, in this lineage, they would pass on the robe and the bowl. And that went on for 28 times until we got to Bodhidharma. And then with Bodhidharma, he gave it to the second patriarch. And when the second patriarch gave it to the third patriarch, Zen Zhang, he wrote a beautiful poem called Pointing at the Heart Mind, which he's really talking about the Chitta Mano. I don't think I've ever heard anyone say that in Zen either. But the heart mind, he's talking about the heart, Chitta, that governs your affective process, meaning your feelings and emotions, and the mind part, which is the thinking and reasoning portion of the.
That's what mano means.
Mano, exactly. So this third patriarch wrote a beautiful poem. We should read it in one of these episodes. I know Ram Dass recorded himself reading it because it is.
Do you
beautiful.
have it right now?
I could look it up, but I think we'll save it for another time because this is juicy. Okay. We'll get stuck even with the first line. Then it went to the fourth patriarch, which that one I don't know so much about, but I'm sure there's writings about him. And then it went to the fifth patriarch, who was the patriarch that was teaching this little boy now. And each time they passed the robe and the bowls. So now it was time to pass it on to the next patriarch, the next person to take this Dharma transmission and lineage and keep it going. And so he said, in order for me to pass these robe and bowls that are coming directly from the Buddha, because there's the same robe and bowls, there's going to be a poetry writing. Because, I've told you, Joana, in our private conversations, that in Zen, the real way, you cannot talk about reality properly. The most effective way is through a poetry, by just pointing at it.
That's also what Alan Watts says, no?
Absolutely. Absolutely. He was definitely influenced deeply by the Zen comprehensions. So they had this poetry contest, and the point was to show your Zen understanding, your understanding of reality. And this one guy who was the main disciple, highest disciple, he knew he should be the next to take the robe and bowls, but he also was scared. He was scared that he would fail, and he didn't want to fail in front of everybody. So he wrote this poem on the wall outside of the teacher's quarters, the abbot. And they saw it. They came out, everyone saw it. And it said something to the effect of the mind, the body is the Bodhi tree. The mind is like a mirror. We must go practice at every moment to wipe and clean this mirror, not letting any dust cling to it. That was his poem. And everyone's like, wow, that's deep. And the teacher knew that it was his highest disciple, but he also knew that he didn't really get it. And so, but he still told everyone, hey, everyone, come bring some incense, bring some candles. Let's pay offering to this beautiful poem, which is pointing at reality. But Hoi Nung, he was working in the rice fields, and he didn't know how to read or write.
Oh.
And, he didn't get to go to school because he had to work to take care of his mom who was sick. And so, right, by the way, before he went to the monastery, he sold enough wood to give his mom money enough to survive for a long time. And he left to become a monk. And so when he was working there, he walked by that sigil that they had created under the poem. And he asked one of the monks, he said, hey, can you read that to me? And they told him what it said. And he said, this guy's wrong. He doesn't understand. Can you write something for me? And the guy's like, sure. And so he wrote a poem next to it. And the poem said, he says, the body is not like a Bodhi tree. There is no mirror. So being no mirror, where can dust cling to? Being no mind, where can dust cling to? And when everyone saw it, everyone understood, like, oh man, this guy really knows. And the first person to see it was the main Roshi, the main abbot, the fifth patriarch. He saw that. He told someone to call him to his office. When he walked in, he said, look, You are the next patriarch. Here's the bowl. Here's the robes. But get the hell out of here. And
why?
the boy's like, why? And he goes, everyone's gonna be jealous, and they're gonna want to kill you for you winning this and you taking the robe and the bowls. But no one here deserves it. No one here understands reality like you do. Get the hell out. Go to this river, passing this river. And so he ran. And yes, everyone heard of that. He got awarded the robe and bowls, and they went to catch him. They finally caught up to him, and the guy was gonna kill him. And then he was like at the cliff of a mountain, and Huineng, he finally said, "You want the damn bowl and robes? Here, take them." He threw him on the rock, on his big boulder. And then the guy who was chasing him went and to try to pick up the robe and bowls, and he couldn't. It was like Thor's hammer. You know how no one can lift it? No one can lift Thor's hammer because it's so heavy.
Whoa.
That's how it was, but with the robe and bowl. And then that guy started crying, and he started saying, "You know what? You're right. I'm not here for the robe and bowls. I'm here for the Dharma. And please pacify my mind." And unfortunately, I don't remember exactly what he said, but I'll try to say it next week. But he gave him a Zen line. But yeah, so that's the story of Huineng and how he solved the question of whether it was the flag moving or the wind moving. Really, it was the mind moving.
Wow.
Yes. So today, Joana, we've been getting pretty deep these last few episodes, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Well, I think it's natural to get this deep, no?
Very good practical answer. I agree. It is natural to get deep, especially if you're talking about the real Dhamma.
Yeah.
And today we wanted to talk about meditation. And I know you've been listening to a lot of Robert Anton Wilson recently.
Yeah.
What type of practice have you been doing recently?
Oh, so during the last lecture, one of his last lectures, he was talking about Sufi meditation.
Yes, from the Sufi tradition.
Juan, have we really talked about Robert Anton Wilson before? Like, have we really explained to the audience why we're fascinated by him?
No, I don't think so. We've introduced Alan Watts, made an episode about him. We've talked a little bit about Ram Dass, and I think only in passing conversation have we talked about Robert. So why don't you tell us about him?
Oh, no, actually, Juan, I think the person who would be perfect to introduce Robert Anton Wilson would be you.
Okay, I'll give it my best shot then. So Robert Anton Wilson, he was this brilliant mind that he was born in Ireland, and I'm sorry, he was born in New York from Irish parents, and he had a polio growing up, and so he had problems with his legs, and he always points out, like, because he looks at all the conditions necessary for things to happen. Mm-hmm. And he said that this probably led him to be more bookish, as he said it. So be more interested in books and philosophy and psychology instead of more like sportish into sports, since his body was failing him. And he went on, he went to school, did well, and he became a very famous writer, journalist, and author. He practiced all these, every type of meditation he would look into. He would look into Sufi practices. He would look into Buddhist practices. He would look into even the Kabbalah of the Jewish tradition. He looked at everything. And not only that,
I believe he studied all religions, kind of like Alan Watts, no?
Yes, I think so, because Alan Watts also was interested in Sufi practices.
But I feel, Juan, I'm pretty sure Robert Anton Wilson really dived into the sciences, like psychology and neurobiology, especially.
Absolutely. Not only that, he definitely learned all the sciences, all the biology growing up, and he said he would read every psychology book he could. And now he was born in the early 20s and 30s. So by everything he was reading was cutting edge. All the psychologies that are normal to us now, they were all cutting edge around his time. And also that's when the psychedelic chemicals started transforming people's.
Oh yes, the research in psychedelics was booming in his time.
Yes.
It was around the same time as Ram Dass was doing his experiments with psychedelics.
Yes, because Ram Dass, Richard Alpert, was working with Timothy Leary, who was like the father of LSD.
Isn't Timothy Leary the one that Harvard threw out?
Yes, not only him, Richard Alpert. Richard was a very popular teacher. He was doing all these behavior studies. And then one day, they started drinking together, Timothy Leary and Richard Alpert. And then they decided to meet up in Mexico, and that Ram Dass was going to be a pilot them across the Americas.
Wait, you're telling me Ram Dass knew how to fly airplanes?
Well, this is the thing. He had only his training license. He didn't tell Timothy Leary he didn't have his full license yet. God. But nonetheless, he went on it. So he met up with Timothy Leary in Mexico, and Timothy had just been exposed to what the local shamans in Mexico call the flesh of the gods, which is mushrooms. And he said that in that mushroom trip, he learned more than he did his whole life. And Ram Dass, and they didn't have any more mushrooms. So Ram Dass was a little sad, but they went back. They didn't go across the Americas. But then he took mushrooms once, or not mushrooms, he got the chemical equivalent to mushrooms in the form of a pill, psilocybin, and he took it in Timothy Leary's house, and then he had a profound experience. He let go of everything. Like he everything he thought was him was all gone. And but then, as psychedelics go, you lose that experience, that experience that is like a kind of like jhana, like ecstasy, where all emotions are done. There's no more self-referential thinking. And now you see the interconnection between the whole universe.
Do you mean, Juan, that it's fleeting like smoke?
Yes, except that the psychedelics, they'll last longer. They'll give you a few hours. Ram Dass, after a while, he saw that he kept coming down. And so he needed to find another way. So he kind of gave up psychedelics for a little bit and went to India and lived at a ashram with a guru named Maharaji. And there, Maharaji, he gave Maharaji LSD. He gave him 3 times the normal amount for.
Oh, I remember this. This was like one of the first stories you told me at the temple about Ram Dass, when you were so fascinated about Ram Dass.
Yes. Yeah, if anyone knows me, you're going to hear Ram Dass, Alan Watts, and Robert Anton Wilson a lot. So yeah, Ram Dass gave him the LSD, and 3 times.
He gave him a whole handful of LSD pills.
Yeah, that guy just popped them in his mouth. And then Ram Dass watched them, and nothing happened. And Maharaji, his guru, told him, "I know what this is. This is," he said, the people in the Kali Yuga, which in Indian Hindu tradition, they think there's 4 cycles of the universe. First is the cycle of 4, the cycle of 3, the cycle of 2, and the cycle of 1. And it's like a dice throwing game. And 4 is the best because it's like perfect, 4, and then 3 is a little less perfect, then 2 is like 50-50, and then 1, the Kali Yuga, is the worst. It's like shit's bad, or stuff is bad, excuse me. Then he said that in this really bad time called the Kali Yuga, people are so materialistic, which is true. Materialistic just means dominated by sense desire. Pleasure.
You said Kali Yuga is the very first one, the dice with the first dice.
The throw of 1, yes, which is the worst throw.
Is that the one we're in right now?
That's what he says. That's what everyone says. But then Alan Watts used to say that people tend to think they're always in the Kali Yuga. They always think it's the worst. So who knows? But he says, since this is the Kali Yuga, it's so hard to attain these states where you become one with God, which really just means when your mind is purified and good, which really just means when your mind is free of emotions. But he says that these people, they're so materialistic, they're slaves to sensual pleasure, that they can't go into these exalted states, these ecstasies. So they had to create a materialistic way to get into it, or had to find a materialistic way to get into it. And he says that's why LSD and psychedelics got so big, because people are experiencing this state where, where the normal person says they become one with God, or they see God. It really just means their mind is finally supremely good, peaceful, still. Jesus said, those who are peace of heart will see God. That just means that you become completely still, samadhi, jhana, zen. And so that's the only way they could get into this state. But he also said it's like coming to the presence of God for a few hours and then getting kicked out. And he said it's better to just become God.
You mean like when you're under the influence of an LSD or a psychedelic, it's as though you're an intruder into the realm of jhana?
Yeah, pretty much. Ram Dass even uses an analogy from the Bible, where he said that it's like someone who's trying to make it to the wedding, but not wearing the proper clothes. And because he's not wearing the proper clothes, they grab him, throw him out into utter darkness with a much crying and gnashing of teeth. And that's how it feels when you're coming down from such a beautiful state. And then you're like, oh, I'm going back into this hellhole. But yeah. Also, yeah, Ram Dass was part of this LSD movement, except Timothy Leary didn't go to India. He stayed and started fighting with the government. He got thrown in jail. Oh. And when all this happened, Robert Anton Wilson started writing Timothy Leary. And then he interviewed him once he got out. And they became best friends, because Timothy Leary said he's never been interviewed by someone who actually has read his work and understands what he's talking about. Yeah, it's very rare to get interviewed by someone who understands what you're talking about. I think that's why our interview with Bhante Sanata Vihari was so good. We understood each other. Everyone in that room was crazy like us. So he became friends with him, and Timothy Leary was talking about the 8 circuit model of consciousness. And
oh yeah, I remember Robert Anton Wilson was talking about the 8 circuits, and then he said that he just wants to give credit to Timothy Leary because that's who he got that idea from.
Yes, and Timothy Leary called it that because he got fascinated by computers. And the human nervous system is like a computer.
Yes. Remember, we've been talking about this multiple times in past episodes.
Yes.
How the child's brain is a computer, and all the experiences it has in life from the moment it's born to the age of 7 is a software. It's a programming. And all that programming will decipher that child's decisions in life throughout its adulthood.
That's right. Everything it perceives is going to go through that programming.
But only if the child is not aware.
Yes. And unfortunately, growing up, it takes us 7 years before our conscious, our intellectual part of the mind starts working. Now, it's not even developed yet, but at least it starts working. So the first 4 years, you're dominated by emotions completely. So that's why we get ingrained unawarely, unconsciously, so much.
Yeah, well, I'm sure there are many humans who do become aware of it with assistance through therapy. And when people actually stop and ask themselves, why am I doing this? Why do I keep making these decisions? Why am I afraid of this? Why do I always assume these things are going to happen? And then like we mentioned before, it's usually because you're categorizing certain experiences and you automatically assume the same thing will happen that has happened before, which is personalizing, which is also known as personalizing an experience, right?
Yes, because you mentioned you broke through the idea that categorizing means you're personalizing. They go together.
Yes, and that is the software programming of your brain.
Yes, definitely. So yeah, and that's what Robert Anton Wilson and Timothy Leary talked about, the first 4 circuits of consciousness. And people get locked into these first 4 circuits because of how they get programmed at the beginning. But then he mentioned it is possible to reprogram. He re-imprint, he called it. And that's by accessing the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th circuits.
Juan, give us examples of how you do that. I know I've heard him say it, but I really like the way you explain things because you're like really...
Well, remember, one of the ways was Sufi practices. So why don't you answer the question?
Okay. Well, I didn't know that was one of the ways, but I know what it is.
Yes. So tell us what you have been practicing today.
Okay. So I believe I was listening to one of Antoine's lectures on, I think it was Monday. Monday, I was listening to one of his lectures. Juan, was a lecture called How to Tell an Ape from a Friend?
How to tell your friends from the apes.
Yeah, how to tell your friends from the apes. And literally, I was expecting it to tell me how to tell like what an ape is and what the difference between an ape and a friend is, but that's not what happened.
Yeah. So what happened?
So he went into neurobiology, psychology, and into human evolution.
Yep. It's so deep, huh?
Yes. And through that explanation, he also dived into how humans, because our minds are like computers, everything that we learn is like, it's not it's a learned behavior. Just because it's a learned behavior doesn't necessarily mean it is the truth.
Yes. It's just your original imprints.
Yes. So, for example, he said, like when people join the military, you pretty much do whatever they tell you to do. You don't. They discourage you from thinking, using your own cognitive
interpretations.
Yes. They discourage you from using your own viewpoint, your own personal compass to decide what is best and what is not best. They encourage you to become like a machine where you are given a direction and an order and you operate as told without questions.
Yeah, and they even mentioned when he was talking about that, he even mentioned that it's kind of how we have in the first 2 circuits. The first one is the bio survival circuit. And there you're always looking for a mother. And
yes, Juan. That was one of my favorite parts where he used the example of the baby goose.
Yeah, who saw a ping pong ball.
Yeah, so
go ahead.
So Robert was using an example of an actual legit experiment that they did with a baby goose who was immediately exposed to a ping pong ball as soon as he was born. As soon as the baby goose hatched from his egg, instead of being exposed to an actual goose mother, he was separated from the goose mother, and he was immediately exposed to a ping pong ball. So literally, the baby goose,
imprinted that ping pong ball as his mother.
Yes, he like looked at the ping pong ball and saw a halo around it and said, "This is my mother." And literally for the rest of his life, he believed that was his mother.
And followed it everywhere. And so that's what
Wait. Not only that, but the baby goose, as it grew up, it even tried to mate with the ping pong ball.
Yeah. Same with the giraffe, Joana. I don't know if he mentioned it in this talk.
He talked about the baby giraffe. This was not actually, this situation was not actually an experiment. It was just an accident, but it was documented, and so they know it's real because there's proof. It's on. They have pictures. You want to tell a story?
So basically, I think the hunter killed the giraffe's mother. And the giraffe started following the Jeep around, because they saw the Jeep had, 4 wheels, kind of like 4 legs. Mm-hmm. And so it imprinted it as its mother. And when it grew up as well, it tried to mate with the Jeep.
Yes. And then the poor baby giraffe even tried to breastfeed from the Jeep.
Yep.
And it tried mating with the Jeep. So it ruined its life.
Yeah. So you got to be careful around kids, you're imprinting their whole...
Well, that really made me think, Juan, about how, you know, how a lot of times people, men and women, will find themselves being attracted to a certain type of person.
Yes.
And even if those people are bad for them and they know they're bad for them, and like, for example, let's say that there's a woman who's attracted to alcoholic men who
Yes.
are alcoholics, okay, and that they're aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, they go in and out of relationships and they keep hoping the next one will be better, the next one will be better. But they don't really stop to, I mean, I'm sure in most cases, they don't stop to analyze and think about, why do I keep attracting, or why do I keep choosing these type of partners? Like, what is it about these partners that really attracts me? So they don't stop to
Yes.
question, like, what is it about this person that makes me want to be with them? And basically it's because they remind them of their father.
Yes, their original imprinting.
Yeah.
So why Robert Anton Wilson was talking about this when he was talking about the people who joined the military. And, you know, we're not talking smack about anyone joining the military. It's
No,
just interesting.
we're talking about science and
Yeah,
yeah, we're talking about the ugly truth.
the ugly truths. We like to look the ugly truths in the eye.
Gotta look it in the eye.
By the way, I laugh at that because that's my favorite line from one of our podcasts. And Joana said that and it tripped me out. It was like so mundane and so like super normal at the same time. But yes, we're just looking at the ugly truth in the eye. And what he was saying is that the military, what they try to do is they try to, in order to program and imprint these humans to go and fight and kill others because they're told and because they make to think it's good. They do, in order to do this, they break them down to almost an infantile state so that they can go back down to the first circuit. And then he talked about how these people who get kidnapped and then they start to change their feeling about their kidnappers. Why? He asked, why is that? He says, well, the kidnapper has to feed them. So they get down, they because of this stress, you get down, regress, you know. Sigmund Freud talked about regression. That's what's happening. You regress down to a childlike state, and you're basically going down the circuits, and you go down to the bio survival circuit. And at that point, you know, just like the giraffe and that try to drink milk from the jeep, it's looking for food. And so he said that the kidnappers bring the food. So the one who's kidnapped starts to imprint them as almost like a mother figure. And that's what the military is doing to these soldiers, to imprint what the ideals that they want in a soldier. They're feeding them, they're clothing them, they're telling them what to do, and so they're putting them under extreme stress, and so they're making them regress to the childlike state, and then imprinting them as the mother, the one that, you know, you follow their rules, and then that's what's happening.
Oh, that's what it is. Vulnerability.
Yeah.
When you are placed into a vulnerable mind state, you begin to accept whatever is happening.
Well, yeah, when you get under enough stress, you regress, unfortunately, because you're once, you know, the bio survival circuit is literally to survive, you know.
Yeah, that's what neurologically your mind is programmed to do. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned this, you were going to talk about your Sufi practice, but
so I was listening to that lecture, and then Robert Anton Wilson, I keep waiting for him to explain how to tell the difference between a friend and an ape, but it never comes. So I'm like hanging on to the words, waiting for him to tell me. And then he starts talking about how he likes to learn about different religions and different practices that help you reach that fifth circuit, right?
Yes.
And he was using, because what?
Because the fifth circuit is the first circuit above the mundane circuits that you're imprinted by society. The fifth circuit is the first circuit of the higher circuits. And the higher circuits, the higher you go, the more you can reprogram your own reality. But yes, go ahead.
The more you take control over your mind.
Exactly. And the more you become conscious of what's happening.
You become aware of everything.
Yep. So he was talking about these practices to get you to the fifth circuit.
Yeah, they're called Sufi practices. The
Yes.
Sufi, Juan, can you explain more what the Sufi?
Well, Sufi is a religion and tradition from somewhere from the East. I think it's somewhere from the Middle
I
East.
think it comes from Islamic practices, no?
It may, but it's not strictly
Or-
Islamic. But here I'm talking without real knowledge, except know that it's an Eastern practice, and it is from the areas where there is a lot of Islam. You're correct about that.
Okay. So he said, let's just practice now. We're going to practice. I want you all to close your eyes. And when I say go, I want you to just be aware of all the sounds and don't categorize the sounds. Don't interpret them. Just let them fall on you and just feel them and just be aware of them and go into them and follow them. So I tried it and it was such a calming experience. And I was like, whoa. And then he said, okay, open your eyes now. And he said, didn't it feel like you were high?
And did it?
Well, I think like I did feel, I felt very calm and very peaceful. Like my mind wasn't rushing. My mind wasn't running with thoughts. So he said he was comparing it to being high because apparently when you're high, like you don't think anymore. And I think he was using the high that people get when they do, when they smoke. What's it called? What is the scientific term for it?
Cannabis?
Yes, he said when you smoke cannabis, he said this experience is similar to the high you get when you smoke cannabis, because when you smoke cannabis, like it's easier to like go into the experience and into the moment because your mind is no longer chattering.
Yeah, it's no longer chattering as much, and the emotional reaction is calmed, and that allows you to put more separation between you and the thoughts, or what you perceive to be you, and the perceived thoughts and feelings and bodily sensations. So it's kind of like that, because yeah, he mentioned Sufi practices to try to get you to the fifth circuit, or he also mentioned weed, or I'm sorry, cannabis, to be the another catalyst. And the one example he did for that one, I think you remember from one of his other talks called the Techniques and Consciousness Change. He mentioned how in the 60s, 70s, when there was the Vietnam War, people who drank, they could drink and be okay with the war, but that when people smoke cannabis, they felt more compassion, and they're like, oh my God, how can we go and be killing these people? Like, that's horrible.
Oh, I remember him talking about that.
So, and it's because cannabis will in Sufi tradition, they call it the heart chakra. It'll open up your heart chakra. And he, from the circuit, he called it the neurosomato circuit, which means where I guess like linking between what we perceive as the mental activity and the body. And basically it's like it's like trying to get into the meditative states. And so you were practicing this today?
Yeah, I was practicing it Tuesday and Wednesday.
And what was your experience like?
And it just felt really like calm. Like I was just there. It was easier to get rid of the chatter. And then it was also easier just to focus on the breath. So I would focus on the sounds and then I would focus on the breath as well.
Sounds like you were engaging your awareness and attention.
Yes, I was.
And when you engage your awareness and attention, the mental chatter stops or lessens.
Yes, the mental chatter was further away.
Yeah. It's like you lower the volume almost.
Yeah, and it was just quiet and it was so nice.
That's just so interesting how where we put our perception and attention, it kind of like mutes everything else.
Yeah, and you realize how like it doesn't even matter.
Yes, because the only way we can get fool this by taking those thoughts as real. So I found that interesting that you're practicing this, and I didn't know what you were going to think, because you asked me what talks that are good from Robert Anton Wilson, and I started listing them, and then that one stood out to you.
Well, you sent me two YouTube videos. Perhaps you can link them below. That way people can hear them if they're curious about them.
Yeah, absolutely. One was Alan Watts talk from his, when he used to do a television program, and the other was Robert Anton Wilson talk.
Yeah, and then so yeah, I was waiting for him to tell me how to tell the difference between a friend and an ape. And I was so disappointed. But I found other things, though. I found the Sufi practice.
Well, he did tell you, actually, without saying it. So I've listened to that talk maybe like 25, 30 times.
Wait. Before you tell me, give me a moment.
Okay.
So I would assume he's it kind of feels like he's categorizing. He was showing you how to categorize.
He was showing you how to tell your friends from the apes. And yes, most likely categorizing.
Are we not all apes?
Yes. Now, who is human, though?
Well, we're all animals. We're all humans, but we're still animals.
So just like there's people who are, well, let me ask you, is an arhat an animal?
In their body form, yes, but in their mind state, no.
So that's what he's talking about then, if we have to ask.
Okay, so he was trying to show you how to decipher between a human with an undeveloped, uncultivated mind and a human
which you can call an ape.
Yeah, it just sounds so harsh.
You got to look the ugly truth in the eye.
Yeah.
That's going to be our motto now.
Oh my gosh, it does. It sounds so harsh.
But it makes sense now, right?
Yeah. I think I just did. I was just trying to go around that word, but you can't.
You can't go around the ugly truth.
I was trying to find a more gentle way.
That's funny.
But you can't.
Yeah, and that's what makes that talk so awesome. He doesn't mention it. He doesn't even say that ugly. Well, he does say it a few times, but he doesn't, dwell on it. He's just showing you how some people are stuck unconsciously within the first four circuits, and some people discover the higher circuits, and they start reprogramming their conditioning. Re-imprinting their original imprints.
Yes. So he was saying that there's people who do things and make decisions because those are the decisions that they were raised and trained to view as ideal by their families. And because they don't stop to question it or think about it, they are following a path that has already been made for them. And they're acting unaware. They're making decisions without being aware of why they're doing it. And they're just doing it, kind of like puppets, remember?
Yep. Their strings are being
they're
pulled.
machines.
They're machines. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess machines are the same as apes.
Yep. Yep.
Oh, machines sounds, I'm not sure which one sounds better, machine or apes.
Yeah, I know, right? The apes have emotions.
At least apes are cuddly and cute, no?
Depends on which ones, I guess, huh?
I'm talking about the baby ones.
Okay. I don't know if like a bonobo, like those skinny monkeys are
like
cuddly.
The baby monkeys.
I'm sure they are cuddly. If you ever seen someone holding a baby chimp, they're super cute.
Yeah, they are.
So yeah, this is the reality. This is the ugly truth. People are imprinted and programmed growing up, and then because you're completely dominated by emotions, and then around 7 years old, you start to use your thinking faculties. And then honestly, they say that you don't develop your nervous system or brain until you're about 25. That's why like teenagers can do like horrific crimes and then go to trial, and then be found not guilty based on their mind not being developed yet fully. It became there was a case like that. So that's why they started teaching that the mind is not developed until like around 25. And that's so arbitrary as well, because there's no set time. It's just the presence of the necessary conditions. But it is possible to re-imprint. It is possible to reprogram, to rewire, whatever word you want to say.
You know what, Juan?
What?
Now that you mentioned that, like, I feel that throughout my teens and my 20s, that was the time of my life where I most felt like a puppet.
It makes sense, because around that time you're a puppet to the
yeah, all I could think about was trying to accomplish the goals and the things that were expected of me from my mom. Like, that was really what I was focused on. Yeah. And it wasn't until like I reached my late 20s and my 30s where I was like, man, what am I doing with my time? Is this really what I want? What do I want? I literally remember one day telling myself, what do you want, Joana? What do you want? Because I wasn't happy. Yes. And I was doing everything that was expected of me, but I wasn't happy. And I was like, what do you want? So I was like, well, I want to do this and this and this. So I did it, and I still wasn't happy. So then I was like, well, what else should I do? Well, right now I got to survive and I got to make some money. Otherwise I'm going to be homeless. So I got a job and I'm surviving. But I feel like there's still things now I'm at a point where, okay, I'm good with surviving. Now, what do I really, really, really want to do with my time? What do I really find value in? Like this podcast, Juan, is one of the few things that I really find a lot of value in, because we talk about things that I feel have high value. Yep. These are topics that really make you question, like, other than surviving, what is the point of being here? What are we doing with our time? Like, the
important questions.
Yeah. And I can finally like just focus on them and go into it. And I'm not worried about surviving anymore. I'm okay.
That's so deep, because the people who are worried about it, they're probably stuck in the first two circuits. And then now that you've crossed those check marks off, or at least immediately they're not issues, now you can go higher and higher to the higher circuits.
Remember how one day you said that usually the people who awaken, they don't do it till they hit their 30s?
Did I say that?
Yeah.
It sounds like something I would say.
You said the Buddha was in his 30s.
Yeah.
Ram Dass was in his 30s.
Yeah. Well, he didn't wake up, but he had a supernormal glimpse.
Like all these people who start to wake up. The Buddha did wake up, but he did it I think he was 32, no?
Yeah. Jesus was around that time.
Yeah. So again, like it has to do with biology, because that's when you said it's in the 20s that their brain actually is fully developed. And then you start to think about other things more important than just, like surviving and hormones.
Yeah, that's true, huh? Because the Buddha, after that time, that's when he finally saw the four heavenly messengers, the four divine messengers, which is a sick person, an old person, a dead person, and a monastic.
Yeah.
Interesting stuff. Yeah, it is. It's definitely the presence of all the necessary conditions, which is a lot biologically.
There was a while, Juan, where I would ask you something and then you'd be like, it's due to the presence of the necessary conditions, Joana. But Juan, why this, and this, and this? Because it's due to the presence of the necessary conditions, Joana.
Over and
I'd be like, why do I even ask you?
Yeah, Yeah, I remember. And that was always the answer. Yeah, that's
Oh my
funny.
God, imagine my boss asks me a question and I'll be like, well, sir, it's due to the presence of the necessary conditions.
That's funny. I've used that with customers and I don't think they like it.
No, I can't imagine my boss would like it either. But it
No.
would feel so good. No.
Yeah, for that one we have to suppress. I have said it, and you can always reason out why, but they don't want reasoning. They want you to shut up and listen.
No,
Go back to
they want you to say what they want you to say.
yeah. They want someone who's in the oral survival circuit.
Yes, maybe that's why. Oh my God, Juan, that
Yes.
is why I gotta get out of my.
Yeah, you're going to the higher circuits.
Well, I just I don't find a lot of value in the work I do anymore. So I think I was telling you, I've told you in prior conversations that I feel like I need something else. I need
Yes.
something. And I don't feel that the work that I'm doing is really like challenging me or giving me the things that I need.
Well, something that's funny about that,
What?
Joanna, is something I wanted to ask you about. You are going on a little 8-precept vacation, I think.
A what?
Yeah, Bhante Punaji called it a 8-precept vacation, but basically a retreat, a meditation retreat.
Bante who?
Bhante Punaji.
Bante Punaji?
He used to call like
precepts
meditation.
Vacation?
Yeah.
Oh, you're talking about my vacation that's coming up.
Yes. And so it's going to be a big 180 shift from what your normal work is.
Oh my God, Juan, let me tell you what I just learned.
Tell me.
Okay, so let me explain to the audience what we're talking about.
Yes.
So within the last month, I arranged to go to a meditation retreat.
Mm-hmm.
And it's coming up, but I'm excited to talk about that experience later on. But basically, I was just learning about the rules that are gonna be in place once we arrive there.
Oh, that's interesting.
Juan, I have to wake up at 5:30 in the morning.
Yes, like an
arhat. Oh
arhat.
my God. I messaged Diana, and then Diana said, "You can start practicing tomorrow."
See, that's very wise. Good job, Diana.
I was like, I just laughed and I was like, "Aw." And I woke up today. I woke up at 7 a.m.
That's funny.
I am not a morning person, Juan, but I'm
Wow.
gonna do my best and I'm gonna figure it out.
Yep, that's the best model, the best attitude, I think, for that. Do your best and figure it out. Have trust in your organism. And
it'll definitely be a challenge, but I think I'm ready for it.
Yeah. What other rules are there? Is there anything else?
Yeah. There is no you can't be on your phone. You have to go to bed at a certain time, I think 11 p.m. There's literally like an agenda, a daily agenda. If you want me to read it,
go for it. I'm interested, and it'll let our people or listeners know, because maybe they've never heard of a meditation retreat. Yeah. So this meditation retreat, we're gonna have it at a Buddhist temple in New Jersey. Yeah, New Jersey, and there are certain rules we have to follow. Yes. I knew there were rules initially, even before like reading them in details. And I was like, whatever the rules are, I can handle it. Yep. I'll be fine. And then I read them today, wake up at 5:30 in the morning. And I was like, oh my God. Okay, so the sample daily schedule. This is a sample of what the daily schedule will look like. So you wake up that means I have to wake up at 5 a.m. because I have to brush my teeth and I got to get ready. And at 5:30 a.m., we're going to do the chanting and meditation. And then at 7 a.m., we have breakfast. At 8 a.m., we do sutta study. At
9 a.m. we have a work period.
Ooh,
At 11 a.m. we have lunch. At
yum.
2 p.m. we do personal practice. And then at
Nice.
5 p.m. we have a tea break.
Ooh, fun.
And at 6 p.m. we do more chanting and meditation. And then at 7:30 we have a Dhamma talk.
Ooh, yeah. And I think they usually stream the Dhamma talks.
Yeah, they usually record them and they stream them live on Facebook.
Yeah, because you're going to go to the monastery, I believe, is called Empty Cloud Monastery.
Yeah, it's the Empty Cloud Monastery in New Jersey.
Sick name, by the way. Very zen.
Yeah.
And its head, the abbot, is the most venerable Bhante Sudaso.
Uh-huh.
And one of the famous bhikkhunis there is Ayasoma.
Yeah, she's one of the co-founders of the monastery.
Venerable Soma. And there's a bunch of new bhikkhus there now. I don't know if you know, but yeah, they had like a few others. I know there's another one named Venerable Bhante Sumano, I believe.
Oh, no, I don't know about all of the other ones. So the only ones I know mainly is the one you just mentioned.
Yes.
Bhante Sudasu.
Yes.
And Bhikkhuni Soma.
Yes. And if anyone wants to listen to him, he's brilliant. He's a brilliant bhikkhu. He knows the Pali. He knows the suttas. And Joana, once I asked him a question about two words, satisfaction and delight. And in Pali, it's asada and nandi. And I asked him for the difference. And asada, he said, basically is something that just happens. He probably said it better, but it's something that happens. You can't, it's not something you desire, or you can desire, but it's something that happens, feeling of satisfaction. But the nandi, the delight, is looking for that satisfaction over and over again. So in the suttas, this is important because nandi is always looked at as bad. And so is asada, to be honest, but I want to know what the difference is. What's the difference between satisfaction and delight?
Okay, you said asada is basically satisfaction, and then nandi is
delight.
But you also said that nandi is the act of searching for it.
Yeah, it's like you're kind of looking for it. You're hoping for it. You're expecting it. And
expectation.
So it's kind of like it's bad because usually they say nandi raga. Raga is like become passionate for it. You're become passionate for that delight. So that means you're searching for it constantly. And
raga sounds familiar.
Yeah, raga is famous, and it means like body full of hormones, basically.
Isn't that I think that's the word they use when they're talking about human sexual activity.
Yeah, because that's full of hormones too, definitely. And so the reason I bring this up is because, I'm not the type to ask many people questions. I joke. Go ahead.
I think that you like to ask questions that you have a lot of curiosity about, but you only ask them with the people that you feel comfortable with.
That I feel can satisfy, can give me the asada, can satisfy.
The carne asada.
Yeah, give me the carne asada. So I don't ask many people. And, Bhante Kalita is one of them. And Bhante Sudaso was one of them. I asked them. So if anyone...
man, Juan, I wish... Man, that means I should really take advantage of that opportunity to ask him whatever I'm curious about.
Joana, you're going to get to talk to a young Bhante Kalita. Trust me. Like this guy's,
How old is he?
He's young. He's young. He looks like he's like 30, but I think I'm not sure, but I know he's older than that. He's take advantage of that. So whatever your deepest questions are, ask him. And I vouch for him. That what does my vouch mean? It means nothing, but yeah, and nonetheless, I vouch for him. And if anyone wants to listen to Bhante Sudaso and maybe all the streaming events that they do, they can look up BuddhistInsights on Facebook and YouTube. I'll put a link to their...
put a link on the bottom, Juan.
Yeah, I'll put a link for their channel so everyone can listen. You can meditate with them and they're usually daily unless they're doing a rains retreat or a close meditation. But yeah, so today's episode was supposed to be about meditation, which is why it has this little meditation vibe. And so you talked about the Sufi practices of listening and experiencing sensations of sounds without labeling them, which is pretty deep practice. It's a good way to not personalize. And what do you think when you hear about meditation, Joana?
What do I think when I hear about when I hear anyone talking about meditation?
Yes, or what do you think about meditation?
Well, at this moment, I think I noticed that sometimes when I think too much about it and I'm trying, well, what I really, really hope for one day is to develop my understanding of the mind well enough so that I can discipline my mind to the point where I can reach jhana. But from everything I've read and everything I've heard, you're not supposed to do that.
Why?
Because you cannot, because that's clinging. And that's like swimming against the current. You have to go with the flow. And if you cultivate positive thoughts and you kind of just have to relax, and it's going to happen on its own. You can't keep looking for it. You just keep practicing meditation, practice making good decisions, practice a skillful life, and practice doing what's best, not just for you, but for everyone else. And it will come on its own.
Yeah. That's very deep too. You mentioned like practicing a good life and not just thinking of yourself. That's true. Meditation on the Eightfold Path, it doesn't start to the steps 6, 7, and 8. So that means the first 5 steps, you got to get your act together, right? You gotta change your perspective, change your goals in life, and change your lifestyle. And only then can you start meditation.
Yes. And Juan, you know what? Today, so while I was practicing this at work, there were moments where I would like little things would happen at work that normally would irritate me. And then this time today, I was like, listen to the sounds, listen to the sounds. And then I would just relax. So one of my friends, she messaged me on our group chat at work, and she was like, hey, can you help me with this case? And I was like, yeah, sure, let me look at it. And I was helping her with the case, and then she sounded kind of sad, and I was like, are you tired? You sound tired. She's like, yeah. And I was like, I'll go visit you. And I took a break and I went to visit her. And then I was telling her, I was like, yeah, could you believe that I feel like in America, we're like slaves. And then she goes, her eyes pop out and she's like, yeah, we are. And then she starts talking about how she's traveled to Europe and she's been to like 17 different countries. And she's like, it's not that much. And then I look at her and I was like, yeah, it is. And then I said, if you had to choose one, which would you say is your favorite? And she said, Portugal. And I said, why? And she said, because it's so peaceful and relaxing there. And I said, I was like, I feel like a slave here because our work environment is very like fast paced and very, very like, there's a lot of pressure in how much work you have to produce. And this culture has just like intensified over the years, and it's become this very intense, especially this year. And I think I was struggling to adapt to it, but now I feel it more. I feel more how obvious it is that in American culture, because of the capitalist culture we have here, we are like brainwashed to believe that the whole purpose of life is to slave away so that you can enjoy luxuries.
Mm.
And it is so far from the truth. It is like slavery. It's
Yes.
slavery. And sadly, like I was telling her, I was like, yeah, I was telling one of my relatives that I don't want to buy a property here in California. I don't want to spend $1 million on a piece of property just for a little house, $1 million. I don't want to be a slave for the rest of my life just to have a little place to live. It just doesn't sound right to me. And then I told her, I've been considering buying property like somewhere else, maybe even out of the country. And she said that she was telling me how property in Portugal is really cheap. And apparently it's really cheap in many other parts of Europe. And to me, that's
Really?
really interesting because in Europe, there is less property.
That is true. I didn't think of that.
Yeah. And she was talking about how in Europe, she was encouraging me to travel more. And I was telling her that I have been wanting to travel. And then I told her, do you know who Robert Anton Wilson is? And
Oh
she's
my
like,
God.
oh, I think I've heard of him. And I was telling her that he encourages people to travel because it helps you. It helps you become exposed to different reality tunnels.
Yeah.
Juan, can you explain what a reality tunnel is?
So a reality tunnel is really a neurological reality tunnel. So it means your nervous system is picking up signals, millions and billions of signals every moment. And but it don't it can if it can't take in all the signals, or also you would just perceive chaos. So you, based on your programming, you only take in certain signals that fit your reality tunnel, and you leave out signals that don't fit your reality tunnel. And so everyone's living in their own reality tunnel, which is what Bhante Punaji said. Everyone's living in their own reality. And that's what a reality tunnel, what you take in through your perception apparatus and what you leave out.
Okay. And why do you think why do you believe that Anton Wilson encourages people to travel?
Because our reality tunnel is programmed based on our surroundings too. You know, whoever you live with, what your society. So when you go to a different reality tunnel, the way you think everything was, it isn't. And that's a trip. That's the LSD
Yes, it's
does.
like you're stretching your mind.
Yeah, it's flipping it
You're
over.
reprogramming your brain.
Yep. Not only that, he even said that like science fiction movies and science fiction books can be like things that will rewire your reality tunnel, because it's a different way of
Yes.
perceiving reality.
It's like, you know how I told you, I think I told you in the last episode that anything is possible.
Mm-hmm.
And the matrix, or the way society programs us, our society, our culture programs us to believe that there are limits.
Yes.
And actually there are no limits.
Nope.
It's infinite. The possibilities are infinite.
Yep.
Like the clap of one hand.
Yes. There's no one categorized reality.
Yes, and this is why Robert Anton Wilson highly encourages people to travel, because the more you travel, the more you stretch your mind, and the more you begin to shift your viewpoint and realize that that things are not what they seem.
Yes, that's true. That's the perfect way to say it. Things are not as they seem. They're not what you thought they were. That's kind of like going into Wonderland. Everything
Yeah, or into the rabbit hole.
into the rabbit hole into Wonderland. Um but yeah, that's true. It's good to travel to see. And I think Bhante Sanata Vihari, who's traveled all over the world, I think he also mentions that. He always encourages people to travel. Now he travels spreading the Dhamma everywhere. So that's very cool.
Doesn't that sound like fun?
Yeah, you might find it so much fun, and you might fall into a jhana in this retreat. Who knows what happens? um, So you shared what you think of meditation, and you basically, it's a way to help you. Would you say meditation helps you become conscious of your programming?
Yeah, it helps me create a distance between the emotions that go through my body, through my mind, and that really like take over me. And instead of me allowing them to take over me, because I think humans, well, I used to believe that emotions come and go like in a day or in like a few hours, but that's not true. Your emotions and emotional experience can last days or months, depending on how traumatic the emotional experience is.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
So, for example, there was a time where maybe like in the second year, I was still visiting the temple, practicing meditation every Friday. I would
Mm-hmm.
visit the temple every Friday, and there was this specific month where I had learned something like some bad news about family problems, and it
Mm-hmm.
was regarding someone I really cared about. So I was like really worried about this person, and I was like really stressed out. And I was
Yes.
thinking about it a lot. And that's why I was stressing myself out, because I was thinking about it so much,
Mm-hmm.
regardless of the fact that I knew I had no control over it and it was not in my hands.
Yes.
So there was a day where it, it was really bad, and I was driving and I started crying. The tears were just falling down my cheeks. And then I got to the temple and I went and sat down and I started meditating. And then the tears were falling down my cheeks again. And I went into the meditation and I walked out of there feeling like a feather.
Oh, wow. What transformed?
So I went I became aware of the body, how tense it was, especially my shoulders and my neck, because I was carrying this emotional burden that really I had no control over, and it was not mine.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I became aware of the body by sitting in meditation and focusing, closing my eyes and going inward, I became aware of that tension. A lot of times we're not aware of the tensions we carry in our body because we're so focused on what's going on outside that the things happening to our body become like oblivious to us.
Yeah, they go unnoticed.
Yes, you're not only focusing on the things outside with your, on your typical daily routine, but you're also focusing on the mind chatter.
Yes, the thoughts going on.
Yes. So if you think about it, that's a lot of stuff. That's a lot of distractions.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
yeah. So it's very easy to neglect and to ignore your physical sensations and the physical experience. It's very easy to become unaware of it.
Oh, yes. I would say the majority of society is living this way.
Yeah. So when I went to the temple, I knew it was gonna, I had so much faith. I knew it was the best thing for me. And I went and I practiced meditation. I closed my eyes and then I became aware. I did the Metta meditation first for 30 minutes and I relaxed the body a little. And then because I was cultivating positive thoughts, I was no longer focusing on those negative thoughts about that person that I cared about.
And how do you practice the metta meditation?
So for Metta meditation, we were instructed to sit down, close our eyes, and you sit on the ground with your legs crossed, and then you keep your hands together in front of you, and you rest them in front of you, above your feet,
Mm-hmm.
like on your lap, and you close your eyes. You keep your back straight,
Mm-hmm.
not straight to like where the point where you're like stressing it,
Mm-hmm.
or
Tense.
or where you're tense. Straight, just keep straight, hold your chin up and keep it straight, but don't like stress it. And then you start to think positive thoughts, and one of the mind, it's kind of like a chanting phrase you say to yourself.
It's like a reflection.
Yeah, you say, may all beings in this first you start with yourself. You say, may I be well, may I be happy, may I be comfortable, may I be peaceful. May no harm come to me. May no difficulties come to me. May no illnesses come to me. May no sadness come to me. Well, I put the sadness in because that's just
Yes.
and then you say that over and over a few times. If you want to say it a little longer, you could say it a little longer. And then you start to send. Metta means love in Pali, right? Or compassion.
Loving kindness is how it's translated. Here, Bhante Punaji's translation is universal benevolence or universal friendliness.
Yeah. So you do the metta for yourself. You must be kind to yourself first. So yes. You do it to yourself. You wish, it's like wishing. I always saw it as wishing good things for myself and then wishing good things for others. So then after yourself, you say it to all living beings in the room. Then you say, may all beings in this room, whether they be small or large, visible or non-visible, human or non-human, known or unknown, may they all be well, may they all be happy, may they all be peaceful, may no harm come to them, may no difficulties come to them. And then
may they live with ease.
Yes, may they live with ease. And then you go on to may all beings in this neighborhood, and then may all beings in this city, may all beings in this state, in this country, in this world, in this universe, in this galaxy, in this everything.
Yeah, into infinity.
Yeah. Until Bhante. You can, and then you can visualize it. I like to visualize it because that's just me.
Oh yeah, and you're supposed to actually, if you're doing this just as a mantra without visualizing, you don't get the effect.
I wonder how I learned to visualize this.
Well, I know that they put a big emphasis at the temple, so maybe you heard Bhante Kalita say it once.
Oh wow. Yeah, so
when you were feeling down and you went to that meditation class,
I stopped thinking about that problem. I stopped thinking about those worries, and I was just focused on the metta meditation, and I did that for 30 minutes.
Would you say that you were selecting your thinking?
Yes, I was cultivating positive thoughts. I was I was being intentional about my thoughts. I was not letting my thoughts choose them. I was not letting anything come into my mind. I was choosing what would come into my mind.
Yeah, like a bouncer at the club, huh?
Yeah.
I explained I was talking meditation with my coworker, and I brought up that analogy that the Buddha used. He liked it.
That's funny. I would not have thought of it that way, Juan, but yes.
And then what happened when we did the second meditation, the Anapanasati?
Okay, so after we do the metta meditation for 30 minutes, we go into the Anapanasati meditation, which is also, Anapanasati means Pali for breathing meditation, right?
Yes, breathing in and breathing out.
Yeah, so then we go into the breath, and you just become aware, okay, I'm breathing in. But you're not saying it out loud, you're just
everyone, I am breathing in.
You're just like literally with your eyes closed, sitting with your back erect and your chin up, and you're being aware. Okay, you're basically just being aware of the body and what the breath is doing, the breath body. Okay, right now I'm breathing in and I'm breathing out. And then, as I remember once Bhante Kolita said that in meditation, breathing meditation, you can develop it to the point where you can focus, also develop an awareness, not just on the breath, but also on the length of each breath, the temperature of each breath, the expansion of the breath, like in your body. And I think he mentioned a few other details. And when he said that, I was like, I didn't say it out loud, but I was like, whoa.
You thought it, huh?
Yeah, because that showed me how like the how the potential to develop your awareness is like
Yeah.
limitless.
Yep. It's true. That's a good way to put it.
Imagine developing your awareness so well that you are aware of the length of your breath, the pace of your breath, the temperature, and God knows what else you can observe if you go deep into it enough.
Hmm. That's very interesting, because I wanted to. Oh, well, let me finish. Let me let you finish. So after you did that meditation, what did you notice?
Oh, yeah. So I walked in there, I sat down, I was crying, there were tears rolling down my cheeks.
Yes.
And then I went into the metta, I calmed down, and then I went into the Anapanasati breathing meditation. And then after it was over, it was like I felt like relaxed and like a feather.
Wow.
And it didn't bother me anymore. All those, those worries, I realized how silly they were.
Wow. It's almost like you got high, huh?
I guess that's
you you get that contentment, that peace. They say that a lot of people who go after sensual pleasures, they're actually looking for that little piece. And it makes sense because usually you're when you are thirsting or craving for pleasure, you get this tension, which is the emotional urge for it. And then when you finally get it, you get relief from this tension. And most people interpret that as being, oh, I'm getting this relief because I finally got what I wanted. But no, it's that you're getting the relief because you finally stop craving it, finally stop desiring it and that you got freedom from the tension.
wow. That reminds me of once I was with my little sister and I was telling her, yeah, have you noticed every time I really want, like, I feel really, really sad, I think, oh, I know what'll make me feel better maybe if I buy this thing that I've been wanting for a while, maybe that it'll make me feel better. So then I go to the store and I buy it, and then I feel a little bit better. And then later I feel empty.
It
Like,
doesn't last.
it doesn't, yeah, it feels empty. I feel like,
And not the good empty that Zen likes.
yeah, I still feel sad. Like it's fleeting.
Yeah. I used to learn that's one of the first Dhammas that I learned when I was a kid. I would beg my mom for toys. I would get maybe one toy every few weeks, but I would beg and beg, and I would think, which toy do I want? So, I may not get that many, so I may pick one that I really want, and I would thirst for it and be desiring it, and then finally I would get it, and I would feel so good, and then I would then that I would lose satisfaction with it, and then I wanted another toy, and this went on over and over and over, and I started realizing the trend. I'm like, man, no matter what I do, I'm always going to get that feeling of that emptiness that you mentioned, that the unsatisfaction come back, and that before I knew that was dukkha and like tanha, I just knew that there was a reality. That was a reality about life.
Yeah, Juan. And I feel like not society, but our culture doesn't want us to go into it and like look at it and examine what is this feeling? Where is it coming from?
Yeah.
Why do I feel this sadness, this emptiness?
Yeah.
Why is it there? Like, we're
That's why
not really encouraged to do that.
Yeah, and that's why they don't want mystics. They don't want people who sit down and do nothing. They want someone who's always in a hustle and bustle, like distracted. I got to go do this. I got to go do that. That's why all the advertising on TVs, on billboards, on the phones, you got to get this. This is the newest thing. They don't want you to sit still. They don't want you to introspect.
Oh, yes. Like I was telling you earlier how I went to visit my coworker my coworker Serene. I was like, Serene, Americans don't know how to enjoy life. And she looked at me and her eyes got wide and she said, no, they don't.
Yep. Deep Dhamma in your break, huh?
Yeah, that's why I like talking to her, because she gets it.
Yeah, it's always that's why the Buddha said that spiritual friends are the most important thing in the spiritual life.
Yeah. Kalianamitas.
Yeah.
Palomitas.
Yeah, as we put it sometimes. So that showed how you had faith, meaning faith here is not like a blind faith, but here is like a confidence that the meditation was going to help your situation.
Yeah, because if somebody tells me, hey man, I heard this really, really works, like, which is pretty much what happened. I read about meditation in articles, science articles, books, and I was like, I want to learn. I want to see if it's true. And I did. I found the temple. It was a blessing that I found it. It was oh my God, it was not a coincidence. How would you describe it? How would you no, definitely not. How would you describe it, Juan? What was the word that you used for it?
For what again?
When people think that
it was
accidents are coincidences, clairvoyance?
Precognition?
No,
I don't know.
Synchronicity. Synchronicity. Yeah. It was a synchronicity.
Yes.
So, yeah, because I was just walking and having these thoughts. Okay, so Juan, I think we had mentioned before that you and I have always, like, you were telling me one day, yeah, ever since I was a kid, I would always question why are we alive? What are we doing here? What is the meaning of life?
Yeah, I used to do this practice that would trip me out. Like, it would trip me out of reality, where I would be like, well, right now I'm paying attention to this body, but what's paying attention to me? And then I would go out, and my mind would go out into the earth. Well, what's paying attention to that? And my mind would go out into like the solar system. What's paying attention to that? And my mind would just go out and out. And at a certain point, there's nothing that you can keep going to. And my mind would trip out. But yes, what were you going to say?
I know, but didn't you feel like a weirdo?
Oh, yeah. And then until I got distracted by a TV show or something.
Yeah, because nobody really talks about that stuff.
Yeah. At least not out loud.
Yeah. And then, yeah. So ever since I was a kid, I would always be like, what does this mean? Why am I here? Yes. Why do we do this? Why do humans do this? Why do I feel this way? Why should I do this? I would always question everything. Mm-hmm. Like literally everything. And sometimes, a lot of times people would tell me, Joana, you think too much. Just stop it. Just enjoy yourself. Go do something and enjoy yourself. And so I would get discouraged from thinking about things. And a lot of times my mom, she would I would ask her questions and she would discourage my questions, like, because I said so. That's why. Mm-hmm. So,
which is like an emotional
answer. So yeah, I just thought it was very interesting how now that we're adults, Juan, you have found, like, now we understand why we have this mindset, like, because we're not, we were not satisfied with what everyone was telling us.
Yeah, with what we've been told, which is the first step in philosophy, is to doubt the tradition, to doubt the culture. First they tell you this, and this, and we worship this God, and this is reality, and you don't question it. And then the first step in philosophy is to question it. Is this true or not? And then, philosophy goes on all the way to existentialism. I've always given step by step of how philosophy grew, because that's how Bhante Punnaji taught me. That's how the philosophy courses taught me. And that's how the Buddha talked about in the sutra, famous sutra, the Kalama Sutra. Bhante Sanata Vihari made a joke when we interviewed him. He said, if you talk long enough about Buddhism, this Kalama Sutra always comes up. It's such a famous sutra. But yeah, so you were doing the first part of philosophy, which is to doubt. And it's important, because if you're doubting, then you're reasoning out. Reasoning out is very important in Buddhism. You know, there's a word called yoniso manasikara. And remember what yoniso means?
Birth, the womb?
Yeah, it's like the womb, the origin. And manasikara, mana is like mano, which is what?
Oh, the origination of thinking?
Well, it's thinking about the origin. And that means looking for the reason. So reasoning means you look for the reason. That's what yoniso manasikara is.
Yeah, most like when we watch movies.
Yeah, when we talk about how we watch movies, we can take a look at the present conditions that are necessary at the moment and see where it's going to go by reasoning out. And we tell our brothers or sisters, and they trip out. How did you know? You know, and it's because the ability to reason, which is our birth right and birth gift as a human. We have the ability to reason out. So we need to use this. And it's important because the chief disciple of the Buddha, the general of the Dhamma, is the Venerable Bhikkhu Mahasariputta. And he was asked, he was asked, how does one gain the harmonious perspective, which is the most important step in the Eightfold Path, because that's how you start going the right direction. They asked him, how does one arrive at the harmonious perspective, or how does one attain it? And he said, there's two ways. One is by hearing it from a Buddha or a disciple of the Buddha. So meaning one is by hearing it from another. That's one way to attain or arrive at the harmonious perspective. And the other way is by reasoning out. Yoniso manasikara. And another place where yoniso manasikara is so important is when the Buddha was talking about how to break all the influences. And here the influences are the emotional influences. And that's what's keeping us trapped in samsara, is these emotional influences. Because everything that stimulates us influences us emotionally to react a certain way. It's like our programming that we were talking about earlier. Our programming, we're programmed to be influenced in a certain way by every stimulation.
Yeah, and then when we were talking about Robert Anton Wilson and how he described biology and
like the imprinting of the mother.
Yes, that is more than programming. That is like in your DNA.
Yeah, yeah, you're set up to continue this futile struggle for existence.
Yeah, it's like you said, it was like you're a machine. That little goose is a machine.
Yeah.
Nobody taught him to imprint the first thing he sees as his mother. He knew it intuitively. It's in his blood.
And you know what distinguishes a machine and an animal from the human being is the ability to think, which is what they call consciousness. Anyone who mentions consciousness, consciousness is thrown around and used to mean many things. People who think existentially are going to use consciousness to mean a soul. A soul sounds too religious, so they're just going to say, but there's a consciousness. There's a universal consciousness out there, and it's even when you're dead, it's still there. That's them just, they can't use soul because that sounds bad and sounds too religious, so we got to use consciousness. All consciousness is the thinking process. That's what consciousness is. Consciousness is the thinking process. So an animal, they might have the thinking process to a small extent. So mostly they're governed by sense perception and emotional reaction. Sense perception and emotional reaction. It's just like boom, 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 boom. And the human is the sense perception, thinking interpretation, emotional reaction. So there's a little buffer there, but most people aren't using or choosing or selecting their thinking So they're living unconsciously.
Oh, so there's like a second step. That's the buffer.
Yeah, Alan Watts used to call this
He used to call it what?
an echo.
Why an echo?
It's like an echo of what's happening. So that's the conscious mind is perceiving what's happening, but because it's an echo.
It's like the mirror.
Yeah, it's like the mirror that we got to keep clean, according to that one disciple, or the mirror that's not even there, as Hoinang said. It's both at the same time. That's why they both were honored. But yeah, so this consciousness is the ability to think. And that's, when we talk about robots and artificial intelligence, it's going to be intelligent once it can think for itself, right? Isn't that what everyone's trying to do with robots now? Trying to allow them to think? That's artificial intelligence.
Well, aren't they programmed? If they're programmed to think independently, they're still robots, aren't they? Because that's how they're programmed.
Yes, but has anyone done that properly?
I don't think so, not yet.
So that's the big question. That's what sets the human apart. That's what they want to get the robot to do, but they can't. It's so impossible. It's so hard because the human mind is so incredibly complex. If you look up a neuroscience book, a neurobiology book, they're going to say that there's more synaptic connections in the human nervous system than there is atoms in the whole universe. Atoms.
You mean in the brain and the spinal cord?
Yeah, that's the nervous system. And there's more synaptic connections in the nervous system than there are atoms in the universe.
That's kind of mind-blowing.
It is. And that's how incredibly complex this machine is, this organic machine. But that's what differentiates the human being, is that what we call consciousness, which we know here is not something mystical. It's literally the thinking process. And that's why the Buddha said that only a human being can awaken to be a Buddha. There's 6 realms, right? According to Buddhist cosmology, six realms. One is the hell realm. One is the ghost realm. One is the animal realm. One is the realm of titans, or angry gods or angels. And then there's the realm of the devas, the angels. And then there's even higher realms with higher beings. But in these 6 realms, they say only the human being can awaken. And most people say, well, yeah, that makes sense, because if you go lower than a human being, there's too much suffering. If you go higher than a human being, there's too much pleasure. So in the human state, there's usually an equal amount of pain and pleasure. That's a simplistic answer, and it's true.
Well, Juan, don't they say that in order to awaken, suffering is is like a teacher. Pain is a teacher.
And why don't the people in hell awaken?
So is it not true?
Pain is necessary, but it's not the only requirement. Pain is necessary so you can realize.
No, when all the necessary conditions are there, then it will happen.
And so most people think that in the human state, that the reason the Buddha said that only the human being can wake up is because there's an equal amount of pain, equal amount of pleasure. That's not wrong, but that's not the obvious reason. The obvious reason to me is that the human being has the thinking ability, the ability to think. Not only that, not just the ability to think, the ability to choose your thinking. The dog, as soon as he hears the doorbell is going to start barking, but the human being doesn't immediately bark, unless you're an ape and not a friend, as Robert Anton Wilson says. So
Unless you're unaware.
Unless you're unaware. If you're unaware, you're like our ape friends. Maybe we can say that ape friends instead of just apes. But this ability to think, this is the key that allows the human being to eradicate the emotions and use the thinking tools to govern our reality, govern our behavior. And so we were talking about meditation. I showed you some notes that I took, that because you tell me that I need to write my thoughts down, and I'm usually lazy to. And so I started.
Yeah, I was very impressed, Juan.
You know, Bhante Kalita once told me to write my thoughts down too, and I didn't do it. So it means something that I did after you told me. So I wrote down some notes, you know, because I wanted to talk about meditation. And so just a few things that came to my mind, you know, you talked about the meditation practice. You talked about the loving kindness. You talked about the Anapanasati. You told us how to do that, right?
Yes.
That's perfect. And I didn't even know that you were going to do that. We didn't even plan it, but it was perfect. I love that you did it, because that's, folks, if you want to know how to meditate, go back and listen to Joana explain the meditation. That's literally the explanation that our meditation master, Bhante Kalita, tells us. And Joana, he was telling that to when I was going to the meditation, he was telling that to me and to the rest of the meditators before I even knew that was the teaching of the Buddha. You know, one time I was listening to one of Bhante Sanata Vihari's favorite YouTubers before he was before Bhante Sanata Vihari had ordained, when he was still a layperson. He would listen to this YouTuber. His name was Lama Jigme Gyatso. He's a very smart, I think he's from the Tibetan lineage. He said, we're going to do a series of meditation on the Mahasatipatthana Sutta. And he's like, this is the main meditation of the Buddha. If you're talking about Buddha's meditation, this is it. And so I listened to the video because Bhante Sanata Vihari sent it to me. And I was listening to it, and he's like, when you're breathing in, notice that you're breathing in. When you're breathing out, notice that you're breathing out. And he went step by step. And I'm like, wait a minute. This is the meditation instructions Bhante Kalita gives us. And that's literally the meditation instructions the Buddha gives all his monks. And so if you want to know what meditation, how to do it, go back half an hour ago or an hour ago, who knows at this point. And I just really start annotating the times.
Oh yeah, we could do that.
Yes. But go back and listen to the meditation instructions. What I want to do is thank you, Joana, for doing that. You know, I didn't have to explain now how to meditate. I just want to talk about what's the point? What is this meditation for? And what is it? So one of the first things that came naturally, because to me, I don't premeditate, think these things. I guess now I did because I wrote it down because of what you told me. But usually I just put my attention to in a certain direction and see what the mind comes up with. So when I thought about meditation and taking all my experience, whether I studied or experiential meditation practice at the temple or in my free time, I realized that meditation is a way of experiencing and not a way of doing. So what do you think when you hear that meditation is a way of experiencing and not a way of doing?
Well, what immediately came to my mind was that you're allowing things to happen. You're not going out there making things happen. You're just allowing things to happen, and you're allowing them to be. And as you allow them to happen, and as you allow them to just be, you relax.
Yes, that's right. And so to me, meditation equals letting go. That relax is letting go. You know, Alan Watts, the first time I learned about nirvana, really learned about it, Alan Watts described it as blowing out. Because he saw the word bana as the flame and nibbana is like blowing it out. And he said, so what is nibbana? It is just breathing out. That's what he says in Nirvana is. And, meditation that's what meditation is, letting go. Now when we hear about sati or satipatthana, people in the West, they call it mindfulness. And Bhante Punaji used to criticize this. He says, it's not mindfulness. You're not filling your mind. Mindful means to fill your mind with something. You're not filling your mind here. You're letting go. So meditation is letting go. That's why I say meditation is a way of experiencing and not a way of doing. Because most people, especially from the West, they want to do. They think, they call it the the Protestant work ethic. They got to do something. You got to achieve things. You got to do everything. And Alan Watts even made fun of this. He said that people think that if they don't suffer, they're not achieving anything. So he used to say, if you want to suffer, go ahead and suffer.
Yeah. And then I didn't tell you, Juan, but I actually ordered that book. The book about anxiety.
The Wisdom of Insecurity?
Yes, The Wisdom of Insecurity. So I ordered it on, when did I order it? I think I ordered it a few days ago. Mm-hmm. No, I think I ordered it like on Monday. So I was reading it last night, and there was this one part where he says that Americans slave away to buy luxury because they look for meaning and pleasure in luxury, but then they just end up a slave again, doing it over and over and over and over, and they never stop to think maybe this is not it, because it's not satisfying.
It's deep. Is that's in the first chapter?
Yeah, it's in the first few pages.
Yeah, you're in for a humongous treat. I'm so happy for you. That book, that's all about letting go. That's all about letting go. That book is all about letting go, because we're constantly trying to do stuff. So when someone tells you have to meditate, or this is how you meditate, they think it's a doing. And that's already causing a struggle. That's already causing a strain. No, this meditation is about letting go. And so if it is a way of letting go, what are you letting go of? You're letting go of doing. Because all emotions is something that you're doing, that it's happening. You're doing it. It literally means emotion, putting something in motion. Your mind is moving, it's doing something. So you're letting go of doing. And when I say you're letting go of doing, I don't mean that at first you do not try to do not doing. Not doing is not something that you do. Does that make sense, Joana? Not doing is not something that you do. You don't do not doing.
Well, if you consider sitting down and just being present with your breath as something that means not doing anything, because you kind of are doing something.
Exactly. So what I'm trying to say is, even though meditation is letting go, and even though letting go of doing, meaning you're not doing, you're no longer, you're letting go of doing, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're gonna immediately not do anything. Because like you said, you actually are doing something, right? By sitting down.
You're just not doing what is okay, so when you meditate, your intention is no longer to do what society tells you, or run around, be a slave, and do whatever whatever it is, that entertainment that you are taught to believe will make your life meaningful. When you meditate, the practice of meditation is the practice of becoming aware of the mind and the body, and how what's happening. Just by like going inside, you're becoming aware of what's happening in the body. You're becoming aware of your breath. You're becoming aware of what you feel inside. do you feel tense? Do you feel tension in your shoulders? Do you feel tension in your back? Because depending on what you feel in the body, you carry pain. Depending on where you carry your tension, it all means something. Like if you Google what emotion is carried on the shoulders, the emotion carried on the shoulders is an overwhelming sense of responsibility. And I know this personally because that's the pain I was carrying during the last meditation we had at the temple. And I had this sharp pain going on the left side of my shoulder, even though I was like, I had my eyes closed and I was meditating. I could feel that sharp pain run down my left shoulder. And I kept like moving my shoulder, hoping it would go away, and I was like, okay, I'm relaxing, but it's still there. And I was aware of it, and it wouldn't go away. No matter how much I tried to like let go, it was still there. So I was like, what is this? This is very strange. I normally don't feel this. So I remember someone once said, I don't know if it was Bhantasanata Vihari or if it was Bhikkhuni Soma. I'm pretty sure Bhikkhuni Soma said it, but I think I heard someone else say it before I heard her say it. But they said, you carry emotions in the body. It might have been Bhikkhuni Soma because she gave a guest. She was our guest speaker.
Yes.
During that last retreat we had at the North Hollywood Temple. And she said, depending on where your tension is, the body carries emotions in different parts of the body. So depending on where it is, it may be a certain type of emotion. So I was like, what? And I took this idea home with me and I looked it up. And sure enough, on a website published by a psychotherapist, he was explaining the different emotions that are carried in different parts of the bodies. And that's how I learned that sharp pain on my left shoulder was stress that I was carrying at that time from an overwhelming sense of responsibility. And I thought to myself, what overwhelming sense of responsibility am I carrying right now? And it was work. Remember how I told you that the culture at my job is changing, and it's all about like all this overload of work that is inhumane, if you ask me. And it was really affecting me, and I was having a hard time. I was struggling to adapt to it because it was so inhumane to me. And the way that they're monitoring people now online and like monitoring everything they do, like even when it comes to taking a bathroom break, like they even require that you sign in and change your status so that they know what you're doing every minute of the day. And to me, that's like such an obvious form of slavery and such an obvious form of invasion of privacy. Like,
yes.
It's none of their business when I take a bathroom break, And I actually verbally said this to my supervisor when I refused to do it. She said, you have to. Are you updating your status when you take a bathroom break? And I said, no. And she said, why not? Because it's none of your business. But let's not talk about that right now. So you see where this sharp pain came from.
Yes. Thank you for painting that picture for us to point and relate to why you had that pain.
Yes. So meditation helps you to understand what's going on in this body. And by developing an awareness of what's going on in your body, you are also developing an awareness of what's going on in your mind. Because again, the mind and the body are one.
Yes, absolutely. There's no separation. There's not even a mind and the body.
Yes, Juan. And again, because of our culture of how, capitalism, we value materialism, and we're taught to value materialism and sensual pleasure over peace of mind. So we really neglect our bodies. And because we neglect the body, we neglect the mind. And due to that neglection of mind and body, I feel that it's very common to see Americans lost. Like I know this from my own personal experience. I feel like I myself had been lost for so many years through depression, through my struggles with depression and anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
And so I say this because I've experienced it myself, and I know that it's a result of the influence of the culture in America. I'm not saying it's the only cause, but I'm pretty sure it played a big role. It plays a big role in the high rates of mental illness, in depression and anxiety that plagues Americans.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think that's very true, and people are unaware of it, huh?
Yeah, and that's why meditation is really beneficial, because it helps you develop an awareness of what's going on in your body and your mind.
Yes, and so that goes with why I was saying that meditation is a way of letting go and a way of letting go of doing. So we're constantly. So you just painted a picture of what the lay life is like, right?
Yes.
Not only do you constantly have to do something, you constantly have to do something that others expect you to do, right?
Yeah, so you can fit in and go with the flow, I guess, fit into society and be considered as successful or be accepted.
Yes. So we know that people are constantly doing something, and then constantly doing something unconsciously that are for what other people want. And usually this is all emotional. It's all emotional, meaning it's all unconscious. That's why you point to how powerful meditation is when you can finally sit still and look inside.
Yes.
So when I was mentioning that in the beginning, at first, you do not try to do not doing, because that will not work. It's like getting caught in a strong current of a river. When you get caught in a strong current of a river, you do not immediately swim against the river, against the current. Instead, you go with it, you go with the current, and you swim to the side and you to the edge. Because if you swim immediately against the current, that's like trying to not do anything. It's not going to work.
Oh, so you're talking about the attempt that certain people, I guess maybe people who are new to meditation, when they have the mindset and think to themselves, okay, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to not think. So they strain themselves and they miss the whole point of it. Like they don't even, they're not practicing correctly.
That's right. That's exactly it.
So that approach is considered swimming against the current.
Yes. So what I mean also, then now that you've cleared that up, which thank you very much, that's exactly what I meant. What I mean now, by going with the current and swimming to the side, to the edge, in order to escape it, that means since we can't not do anything, because even not doing is doing something, as you mentioned, since we cannot not do anything, we're going to use our thinking properly. Since we can't stop the thinking, we're going to choose our thinking. So this means you start letting go of thoughts that trigger emotional reactions. And to do this, you do this by selecting your thoughts and select thoughts that generate stillness and tranquility. So there's a famous verse, Joana, of the Buddha in the first chapter of the Dhammapada, which is the sayings of the Buddha, that says, he beat me, he injured me, he talks smack about me, for modern terms.
That's hate.
Yeah, he said, for those who think those thoughts, hatred does not cease, does not come to an end. But then he says, he beat me, he tortured me, he talks smack about me. But those who do not think these thoughts, then they are freed from hate. So we have to give up thoughts that trigger emotions, trigger emotional reactions, like thinking constantly, ruminating on what my coworker did to me or what my boss did to me. They want me to
Juan,
log my time.
would you say that that act of ruminating over things, over hatred, is the ego?
I mean, I'm sure the ego is because here the ego we're talking about, our sense of comparing and thinking about others. It definitely has something to do with it, but we can't say it's the ego because there is no ego. There is no entity called the ego, but we can say it's activity of what we can call the ego. It's really just emotional thoughts. There's no personalizing, there's no personification of this. It's just thoughts that trigger emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And so we start giving up these thoughts that trigger emotions. How do we do that? First we guard the senses, make sure we're not thinking of what we immediately perceive that will trigger emotions. We don't think about it. If you see your boss yelling at your coworker, you're not going to sit there and ruminate and be like, wow, I can't believe this, she's so inhumane. She's horrible. That's not going to solve any problem thinking about it. And so you just don't think about it. And you choose not to think about it because that's going to trigger emotional thoughts. And emotional thoughts is going to trigger hormones being sent out into your bloodstream, which cause tension. It's going to cause your shoulder to have a sharp pain. So the first step is not thinking these emotional thoughts, whether they're being perceived immediately or whether you're thinking about memory. You're perceiving a memory of something that happened and you're ruminating on.
Yes.
So instead of ruminating and letting these emotional thoughts continue, instead of that, you're going to start selecting your thinking. You're going to choose what to think.
And you know what? I feel like a lot of people are not aware that they can do that.
No, because thinking is like breathing. It can be conscious or unconscious. Whether you are conscious of it or not, it's going to continue. So in the beginning, you don't swim against the current by saying, no more thoughts, and hoping that it works.
It's like saying no more breathing.
Yeah, it's not going to work. You're going to pass out and start breathing again. So instead of saying no more thoughts, you're going to hire the bouncer and be like, if these types of thoughts try to come in, kick them out. If these thoughts come in, let them in. So you're going to start choosing your thoughts. And this is how the journey starts of meditation. You start choosing your thoughts. That's what I just described of eliminating the emotional thoughts that trigger emotional reactions and cultivating the thoughts that generate peace, tranquility, and stillness. That is the harmonious exercise. So we do this so that we can start calming the mind and relaxing the body, because it's only when you start calming the mind and relaxing the body that is the only way you can start to really let go. You cannot let go when your thoughts are running rampant unconsciously, triggering all these emotional tensions in the body.
You're talking about letting go of the emotions.
Letting go of everything. We're talking about the big letting go.
Juan, letting go of everything, that's pretty challenging. But to start off with, you can train your mind to let go of the emotions. That would be the meditation 101 is learning to let go of emotions. That's the beginning. And then as you develop it further and further, then eventually you can learn to let go of everything.
Absolutely. And yes, of course, we're talking about the beginning right now, but letting go, it's going to go infinitely. We're going to let go infinitely.
Yeah, so it just gets better and better the more you practice.
Yes. So this first starting journey of meditation is the harmonious exercise, which is letting go of the emotional thoughts and cultivating, selecting calm, peaceful, rational thoughts. And that's the beginning. And then,
Juan, would you say that that's like taming the machine?
It's you're setting up the conditions to really tame the machine. Because to really tame the machine is the ultimate letting go. It's the letting go infinitely. But calming the body, relaxing the mind, letting go of the emotional thoughts, and generating calm, peaceful thoughts. That's just to do that, Joanna. That's just setting up the conditions to allow you to let go.
Yeah, you know what you just remind me of?
What?
It's kind of like if you have a radio station on your head and you're like, you know what? This radio station sucks. I'm going to put something really nice on. So then you just put in another cassette, like a cassette with
some Eckhart Tolle music.
Yes. And then you're like, oh my God, it's so much better. And you can actually do that. You just got to practice.
That's right. That's it. You know, Joanna, just how you described it, that's how Ram Dass described it. He said changing the channel. And that's how Bhante Punaji described it. He called it changing the channel. You change the channel. And that's how Robert Anton Wilson said that once you go past the first four circuits, it's like going from just watching local TV to watching cable or satellite, having so many more channels once you go upwards.
That's how I saw it when I was practicing the Sufi awareness, just focusing on the sounds. It was like I was in I changed the radio station.
Yeah, you are in charge of the control of the organism, of the nervous system. So Joanna, this letting go of emotional thoughts that trigger emotional reactions and tensions in the body, and cultivating and selecting thoughts that suit your purpose, which is your purpose now is to calm the body and calm the mind and relax the body. This is called the harmonious exercise. This is the beginning of meditation. This is how you set up the conditions to go into jhana. This is how you get into jhana, Joanna. By doing this is how you go into the first jhana. If you constantly have that bouncer in your mind that says, no, these thoughts, nope, no good. These thoughts, yeah, come in. If you constantly have that, that means you're gonna get to this state where your mind becomes calm and your body gets relaxed. And when you get into this state, yes, and you do it, you prolong it for long periods of time, this is how you go into jhana, because jhana is freedom from emotions temporarily. This is temporary freedom from emotions. So you can get into jhana just by doing this practice. So if you go to the meditation retreat, if you just practice selecting your thoughts constantly from 5:30 to whatever time you go to sleep, whatever time the itinerary says, then you will get into jhana, no doubt. That's the recipe. So why do we want to get into jhana? Because that's when you can really start to let go. Because I said that in the beginning, you can't just let go of thinking. You can't.
Oh, Juan.
Yes.
Can you tell us what happens when you reach jhana?
Yes. So this harmonious exercise, this is the 6th step. And we already said, you said it in the beginning, that you have to get your life in order and do all that. So that's the first 5 steps of the Eightfold Path. Once you're going to start meditating, which you're going to go do in this retreat coming up, that means you're going to start removing, eliminating thoughts that trigger emotions and generating thoughts, selecting thoughts that generate peace, tranquility, and stillness. When you do this, you go into jhana because no more emotional thoughts are being triggered. And that means your mind becomes happy. So this is how you get to the 7th step, which is samasati. And Joanna, this is the beginning of the 7 steps of awakening. Remember, we always mention the 7 steps of awakening?
Yeah, I remember.
So with this 7 steps of awakening, so these 7 steps of awakening, that means we've already, so have you heard of these 2 practices. You know, in the Theravada tradition, they think they're two separate practices. One is called samatha and one is called vipassana. Have you heard of this?
Yeah, they sound familiar. Vipassana.
And samatha. So samatha means tranquility. Vipassana means they usually translate it as insight or wisdom meditation. So these are not two separate things, because there's people who practice what they call insight meditation, which they call dry vipassana, from some traditions from the commentators professed, and some of so there was like teachers called Sayadaws in Burma. There's teachers in India, like the Goenka tradition. They all try to teach vipassana in a way where they say you don't need jhana. You don't need jhana. All you need to do is just be aware of reality and see everything come up and go away.
Do you think that's true?
No, the Buddha said that samatha and vipassana go together. So that means jhana. He said jhana and pañña go together. There's no pañña without jhana. There's no jhana without pañña. They go together. These experiences, samatha and vipassana, are just two ends of one stick. And so what we're doing here, so far we choosing our thinking so that we don't have emotional thoughts trigger emotional reactions.
Wait, Juan, you said jhana and pañña always come together hand in hand.
The Buddha said there's no jhana, there's no pañña without jhana, there's no jhana without pañña.
And pañña is wisdom.
Yes.
And jhana is blowout.
No, jhana is ecstasy.
Oh, no, nirvana is blowout.
Yeah, nirvana is letting go, blowing out.
Jhana is ecstasy.
Without ecstasy, there's no wisdom. Without wisdom, there's no ecstasy.
Ecstasy.
So they're not different. So here, when we were choosing our thoughts that trigger emotional reactions, we stop those. We let go of those. We kick them out like the bouncer. Nope, you can't come.
Actually, Juan, I don't feel like I kicked them out. I just like substitute. I replace them with positive thoughts.
That's because you can't kick them out. You can't let them go without substituting. Substituting is the kicking out.
Okay.
That's how the Buddha said. The Buddha said, how do you let go of these thoughts of anger, of greed, of delusion? The only way to let them go is to substitute them. So that's what the Buddha said in the Dvaita Vitakka Sutta. Dvaita means two types of thoughts. Vitakka is the thought, inference. And he said there's thoughts that are emotional, greed, lustful, and delusional. And there's thoughts that are not lustful, not hateful, not delusional. And so you eliminate the hateful, lustful, delusional thoughts with non-hate, non-lust, non-delusion thoughts. So that's the only way you can stop or let go or kick out these emotional thoughts, is by replacing them, by substituting, by changing the channel. So this is the samatha practice. Samatha means calming down the mind, relaxing the body. This is the samatha practice, is choosing your thoughts. You're doing this to get into jhana. Once you're in jhana, the reason for jhana is so that you can do now you can change your thinking. Now that your mind is fully still,
you're reprogramming your circuits.
Now you can reprogram your circuits. That's the vipassana. And you can't talk about vipassana without talking about the 7 steps of awakening. So the 7 steps of awakening starts at sati, the 7th step. Sati is the first step of the 7 steps of awakening. That's like getting to the green when you talk about the game of golf. At the green is when you can start putting the ball into the hole. No longer are you just seeing a flag in the distance. Now you see the goal right there. You just got to put it in.
Wait, Juan, what is sati again?
Attention.
Okay, thank you.
So sati means attention, normally translated as mindfulness. This is not mindfulness. You're not filling your mind with anything. This is attention, awareness. And not only attention, awareness, this is satipatthana, means attention directed inside. So now that you have been letting go of thoughts that trigger emotions and cultivating and generating, substituting thoughts that trigger peace, tranquility, that generate peace, tranquility, stillness. That allows you to get into jhana. And that means whenever you're choosing your thoughts, selecting your thoughts, you are using attention. You cannot choose your thoughts without attention.
True.
So when you're choosing your thoughts constantly, 24/7, you have attention that is engaged constantly, 24/7. So this is how you truly start practicing the first step on the 7 steps of awakening. And when you have your attention directed inside, you're seeing the tension in the body. You're seeing whether that tension is comfortable or uncomfortable, whether that feeling in the body is comfortable or uncomfortable. You're seeing what your emotional state is. What is the state of your mood? And most of the time, if there's a tension in the body and it's uncomfortable feeling, then there's an emotion in your mood. Their mood is disturbed. And not only are you seeing the mood that is disturbed by emotion, you're seeing the thoughts. You're looking at the thoughts, the automatic thoughts that are causing and triggering this emotional reaction in the body and the mind. When you see the thought, you realize it is this thought that is creating this emotional, bodily tension, uncomfortable feeling, and emotional state of mind. It is this thought, because that's what the cognitive psychologists have learned. It is your thoughts that lead and create your experience, whether it's going to be a peaceful, calm experience or an emotional, disturbed experience.
Yes, Juan, like when I was having that sharp pain on my shoulder, even though I was meditating, deep down in the back of my mind, I was worried about all the work I had to do that I was just anxious about.
Yes, that's right. So only when you started choosing your thoughts. So one way of choosing your thought is, may all beings be well, happy, comfortable, and peaceful. May I be well, happy, comfortable, and peaceful. May all beings be free from pain, free from suffering, free from illnesses. May they all live with ease. That's a way of choosing your thought. That's a way of substituting your thought. That's a way of tuning to a different channel.
You know what, Juan?
What?
If you pay attention, if you close your eyes and pay attention while you do metta, you can feel like the chemical changes, like the hormones in your mind. And you can feel, because your brain, your thoughts create hormonal reactions, like chemical reactions in your brain, which trigger hormonal
changes in the bloodstream.
Yeah, those chemical reactions in the brain,
the neurotransmitters.
Yeah, the neurotransmitters in the brain are directed by your thoughts.
Yeah, and they signal certain glands to secrete hormones.
Yes, so depending on what thoughts you're having, if you're having negative thoughts, you're sending signals, neurotransmitters are sending signals to your endocrine glands, telling them to release cortisol, stress hormones. And those stress hormones are going to cause tension in the body. And if you constantly have negative thoughts, you're constantly sending neurotransmitter signals to those endocrine glands, telling them to create more and more cortisol hormones. So cortisol is like, it's okay to have a little bit, but to have it constantly all day long is bad. It's like poison. Too much of anything is poison. So when you do metta meditation, if you pay attention, you can feel those chemical reactions change, and it feels really like
in basic neuroscience, they talk about the two pathways. One is the sympathetic pathway, and the other is the parasympathetic pathway. The sympathetic pathway, although it sounds like sympathy, you think it's good, it's actually, that's what's sending those hormones, the fight or flight hormones. And the
those are the hormones you cannot control, supposedly, right?
I don't know. I don't know what you mean by control the hormones.
Well,
but
like the fight or flight reaction. The fight or flight reaction is a reaction caused by hormones. Like when your mind is in the state of fear where it believes its life is in threat, its life is being threatened, it releases the fight or flight. It causes the fight or flight reaction, which is a hormonal reaction where the adrenal gland excretes adrenaline, high doses of adrenaline, so that it prepares your body to physically defend itself. But I remember when I read about this in the biology textbook, I was under the impression that it was something that happens by itself that you don't have control over, but apparently you do have control over it.
So it is part of the autonomic
nervous
system, which is the one that's mostly unconscious. And but you can notice, if you're practicing meditation, you can notice how what's happening in your body, right?
Yes.
Okay, so what happens is, for the unconscious person who does not know how to meditate, this is going on, and there's no way of stopping it, like you mentioned.
Yes. So for a person who does not meditate and does not practice awareness and has not developed that ability, or that hasn't developed that awareness, then in their case, they do not have control over this.
That's right. And for the person, the Buddha always used that, for the uninformed normal individual, that's what happens, what you just described. For the informed supernormal individual who has heard of the supernormal individuals, who has heard of their supernormal experience and teachings, for them, they can practice this attention, this introspection, and they can say, oh, my heart is beating. Oh, I got this tension in my stomach and in my shoulders and my neck. Oh, I see what's happening. So when you can practice awareness, that shuts off the fire. Now you just got to metabolize the hormones in your blood system, because you're no longer secreting them, because you're aware, you're engaging attention. No longer is your ruminating unconscious chatter continuing. Now you have your attention. Now you're choosing your thoughts. You're selecting your thoughts. That will allow the parasympathetic pathway to get activated. The parasympathetic pathway is the opposite of the sympathetic pathway that was releasing all that adrenaline and stress hormones. The parasympathetic pathway will try to get you back to what is called homeostasis. Homeostasis is the peace and tranquil state, the balanced state of the body. Every time you get injured, the body works to get you back to homeostasis, a healthy center. So when you can practice this attention, practice substituting your thoughts to turn off the fire, to stop signaling the endocrine glands to secrete hormones. That's what happens when you're choosing your thoughts. You're stopping the fire, stopping the signal to send out more hormones. So when you can choose and substitute your thoughts constantly, you're truly practicing attention, sati. And that means that you have started ascending the 7 steps to awakening.
Oh my God, Juan, that's like basically if you can learn to do this through meditation, you're like changing biology.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. The Buddha says that in this state, when you get into jhana, you make the mind pliable, meaning you can.
Yes, it's like you are the clay. You're the clay. You're the molder. You're the molder of the Okay, so you're like the artist of your mind. You are molding your mind's way. You are the master of your mind.
You are the master that makes the grass green, as Robert Anton Wilson would say. Yes, absolutely. You're 100% correct. So this is what happens. So now we're going to talk about, how does this happen? How do these 7 steps are logical. these are not things that I'm telling you for you to
Yeah.
memorize.
It's not, it is magical in a sense, but if you go into it, it's very rational and it's very,
Makes sense.
yeah.
So once you're constantly choosing your thoughts, substituting your thoughts, that stops the signal to your body to keep sending hormones. Now you're engaging your parasympathetic pathway, which is now it's sending chemicals to calm down, to relax, to feel good, to come back to the center. And you're doing that because you're constantly choosing and substituting your thoughts for peaceful thoughts, relaxing thoughts, calming thoughts. And that allows you, that means if you're doing that, that means you're truly using attention. That means you've started the seventh step of the Eightfold Path, which is sati, and the first step of the 7 steps of awakening. You started ascending now. You're ascending to Nibbana now. And by engaging your attention and seeing what is happening. And yes, you're still waiting for those hormones to metabolize, but you're already seeing a reduction. That's what you meant by seeing.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, you know, how I told you the story of how I learned to go inside during my interactions with angry clients.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah, I just went inside, literally. Like, I did everything I did during a meditation session at the temple where, well, I did everything I did during the breathing meditation. So I would be like, okay, what's happening? What do I feel? Oh, I'm breathing fast. I'm breathing really, really fast right now, really quick. My heart's beating really, really fast. But my breath is really shallow, and my stomach is really tight. And my fists are tight. My shoulders are tight. Oh, it's happening. The fight or flight hormonal reaction is happening. It's taking over. Okay, what do I do? Oh, I relax. I'm going to relax my stomach. Okay, I'm going to relax my shoulders. I'm going to breathe deeper. Okay. And then you're slowly taking over your reaction. You're slowly, intentionally.
What that is called, Joana, that's the second step of the 7 steps to awakening. The second step is called Dhamma Vichaya. Dhamma is experience. Vichaya is examining. You have examined your experience. So first you looked at your experience with attention, sati, and now you're examining your experience.
Yes, I said, okay, I'm going to go inside. I want to see what's happening inside. Oh, this is happening. Why is this happening? Because of this. Oh, what else is happening? Oh, this, and this, and this, and this is happening. Oh, I see now. Okay. So now I'm going to intentionally choose to do things that I know will help me relax. And I'm going to breathe deeper. I'm going to relax my shoulders. Now that I'm breathing deeper and I'm relaxing, I can calm down.
That's right. And so when you engage your attention properly, and you can only engage your attention properly if you're substituting your thoughts and choosing your thoughts, selecting your thoughts, when that allows you to engage your attention, which allows you to finally examine your experience, because now you're paying attention to what's happening inside. So that allows you to examine your experience, like you mentioned. What that does when you do these things, it gives you this mental strength. You feel this mental strength, this cognitive strength. Now you feel this strength that you don't have to be overwhelmed or overpowered by the emotions. You gain the power, you gain the strength. Now you're like, oh, when you became conscious of what was happening and you can examine your experience, that gave you a sense of control, a sense of strength. That's the real willpower. You know, people talk about willpower and they use all this magical thinking. You know, I always use the example that willpower means that if someone comes and slaps you in the face, you have the ability not to retaliate. That's willpower. A normal person who gets slapped in the face, they immediately want to swing back or say some mean things back or punish them somehow. But if you can introspect, pay attention to what's happening inside, examine your experience, see what's happening, see, oh, there was an emotion, oh, there was a tension. That is allowing you to calm down. And calming down is what zaps the power away from the emotional reaction. And when calming down, because you're becoming conscious of your experience, when that saps away the power of the emotion, that's what gives you the strength. It gives you the power over your experience. And that strength makes you feel so content, so extremely content and happy, cognitively content, cognitive joy. Oh, I'm no longer a slave to my emotions. I know how to practice. I know how to gain strength over the emotions. And it's not like a struggle. This is not a tense struggle. This is a relaxation. It's so easy because relaxation is stronger than anything, stronger than any emotion. And that's what you feel, this incredible, extreme contentment because you have the strength, because you became conscious of your experience, because you were introspectively paying attention to what was happening inside. And you only got that because you were choosing your thoughts and allowed you to relax and calm down by removing the emotional thoughts. And so when you have this extreme contentment, this piti, that's the piti that comes after the mental strength, the virya that comes after the dhamma vichaya that comes after the sati. So the piti is the fourth step on the 7 steps to awakening. When you get this extreme contentment, because no longer are you slave and dominated by emotions, you have the strength to choose your experience. Because you have this extreme cognitive contentment and joy, this cognitive happiness, your body becomes extremely relaxed. All tension leaves your body. All tension leaves your body. You become so supernormally relaxed. That's the passaddhi. Passaddhi means relaxation of the body. That's the 5th step of the 7 steps to awakening. And then now, we talk about the mind and the body, Joana, and we always say that there's no difference, there's no separation.
No, it's all one thing.
So immediately when you get this cognitive contentment, that immediately makes the body extremely relaxed. And when the mind is immediately content and the body's immediately relaxed, you fall. I say fall because it's like a letting go. You let go further and further. You go into jhana. You go into ecstasy. Why? Because ecstasy, jhana, means your thinking activity and the affect feeling activity are now unified. Because now your mind, your mental cognitive experience is content and your physical experience is relaxed. And that allows you to unify your mind. That is the samadhi. And samadhi means jhana. So this first jhana, which samadhi is the 6th step of the 7 steps of awakening, and also the last step of the Eightfold Path, you go into jhana. And in jhana, ecstasy, because you're stepping out of the emotional realm, you're stepping out of the emotional world. That's why ek means step out. Ecstacy is to stand. So stand outside. You're in a state of pure bliss, we can call it. So in this jhana, this ecstasy, there's 5 constituents to the jhana. The 5 constituents is answering, questioning, cognitive contentment, physical comfort, and unified mind. So the answering is vitakka. Vitakka is thinking. You always infer or may come to a conclusion. Vichara is the questioning, vichara. And this activity is always going on, questioning and answering, questioning and answering. But usually it's unconscious. So you're always like, what did that manager say to me? What did that car just cut me off? How could he do that? You're asking all these emotional questions that trigger emotional conclusions, that trigger emotional reactions in the body. which trigger tensions and suffering. But now in jhana, there is questioning and answering, but it's all peaceful, calm thoughts, no room for emotions, especially since you're choosing your thoughts and you're engaging 100% attention. So there's questioning and answering, but since it's good questioning and answering, not emotional, then there's piti, cognitive contentment, and also sukha, extreme physical comfort, like a pleasurable comfort, and the unified mind, the thinking and emotional or the mood, the thinking and the mood have unified. They're together. That's what samadhi means. Sama means equal, and di is the state of mind. So the mental equilibrium. Samadhi means a mental equilibrium. And this unified mind is ekagata. Eka is one, agata is like in a certain way, going in a certain way. So that's what's happening in the first jhana. And so we talked about meditation as letting go, right, Joana?
Yeah.
So, and what do you think was going to happen from the first jhana?
You let go some more.
Yes, exactly. So then you let go, you start letting go even more. And you go to the second jhana. In the second jhana, that's when the thinking stops. That's when the mental chatter stops. No longer do you ask a question and answer the question. Now you stop conceptualizing verbally. You still have attention. You still feel the cognitive contentment. You still feel the physical extreme comfort. You still have the unified mind, but the thinking and questioning has stopped. So you see how you don't forcefully stop the thinking. It happens.
Yes, it happens naturally.
It happens naturally. And it's not something that you decide. It just happens. It happens due to the presence of the necessary conditions. That's why I said in the beginning, you do not go against the current immediately. You do not choose to stop thinking. It's impossible. You have to.
So are you saying that at one point you actually do go against the current?
Or you're no longer. Now the new current is letting go. Now
would you say that there's no longer a current?
There's no longer a current, because the current really is the emotional current. The current is the emotion. If you go into the suttas and you talk about the currents, the floods, he's talking about emotions.
Yeah. So when he says that you're building a raft so that you can cross the river, the river you're crossing is the river of emotions and attachment.
That's right. It's exactly
attachment
right.
is an emotion, right? So it's all emotions.
It's all emotions. That's the cause of all suffering.
And once you get to the other side of the river, once you've conquered the emotions and you've mastered and tamed your mind, then that is when you reach Nibbana.
Yeah, and you no longer need the raft.
The raft is
the Eightfold Path, the practice.
Yeah, the way of, yeah.
So in the second jhana, that's where the thinking really stops. That's where the questioning and answering stops. That's where the mental chatter stops. And that mental chatter, the questioning and answering, that's the verbal constructions, the verbal sankhara. It stops at the second jhana. And then when you go into the third jhana, something else stops. Do you remember what stops?
In the third jhana, hold on.
In the third jhana, what stops is the cognitive contentment, the piti. You feel that you can let go even further. You can calm down and relax even further. And you see that
cognitive contentment. Oh, so you mean you let go of the pleasure?
No, the pleasure was the physical comfort, the sukha. Cognitive contentment was the piti. So in the third jhana, you give up the piti, the cognitive contentment, and all you have is the sukha and the attention and the unified mind.
Cognitive contentment. What is cognitive contentment?
It is piti. Cognitive contentment is the experience you feel when you realize that by paying attention and examining your experience, you gain strength over the emotions. And because you gain strength over the emotions, you become extremely content cognitively.
Oh, okay.
So in the third jhana, you give up the cognitive contentment, because even that is a subtle excitement. And because of this, there's only the cognitive, the physical comfort. All right, so in this third jhana, once you have the physical comfort, extreme physical comfort, and along with the attention and the unified mind, you then go into the fourth jhana and you want to let go even further. And now you've given up this physical pleasurable comfort. Not only that, you've transcended, you've given up all pleasure and all pain, all joy and all sorrow. Now in the fourth jhana, you've given up all of this like feeling, all the feeling, the pleasant or painful feelings, you've given them up in the fourth jhana. In the fourth jhana, all you have is what they call apperception, the upekkha, and you have apperception accompanied with attention. And apperception means now since you're no longer you no longer are experiencing feeling, it's because you're no longer creating objects, forming objects. And since you're no longer forming objects, there's no feelings that come about, because feelings only come when you create an object. And since there's no more objects, there's no more feeling. And so now you're completely focused within. That's the apperception. And so this first four jhanas were calming down the affect aspect of the mind, the feeling, mood aspect. And then once you've calmed down the affect aspect of the mind, the feeling aspect of the mind, when you calmed it down, let go so much, now you can start letting go of the cognitive aspects of the mind. And that's the ayatanas, the formless realms, the imageless realms, or the cognitive realms, we can call it. And in this ayatana, since you stop creating objects, which means you stop seeing objects, which means you stopped experiencing feelings based off of this object, now, since there's no objects anywhere, there's infinite space. So you start perceiving infinite space. This is the realm of infinite space. Akasa chantayatana. I always say it wrong. And then you notice that, oh yeah, I'm perceiving nothing but infinite space. So that means I'm perceiving too. So then you go to the next cognitive realm and start seeing, the only thing you notice is perception now, because you were perceiving empty space, and then you realize, well, that means I'm perceiving. So then you look and you see nothing but perceiving. You go into the realm of infinite perception, vinyanchayatana. And then, because you realize that all you noticed was infinite perception, you realize at that point, Joana, that you were creating everything with your own perception. All there was nothing but infinite perception. And that makes you feel like there's nothing. There really is nothing. All there was your own perception. And by realizing that there's nothing, you go into the cognitive realm of infinite nothingness. That's the akiñcayatana. And when you realize that there's nothing out there. There's nothing out there, nothing here. There's infinite nothingness everywhere. You calm the mind down, because each state you're letting go more and more and more. And you let go to the point where you reach the state where you're not even sure whether you're experiencing a sensation or no sensation. That's the fourth ayatana, the fourth cognitive realm. Neva sanya nasanya. Neither sensation nor no sensation. You're not even sure. And then that's the threshold of consciousness. You know, we talked about consciousness as the thinking. Here we can call it consciousness as like cognitive activity. This is the threshold of cognitive activity.
Would you say this is the eighth circuit?
That would be hard to say. I would have to be more of an expert on the 8 circuits to really say. And, I'm getting that book thanks to Dave. Thank you, Dave, for your gift. Very generous. I ordered a book called the Angel Tech, which is a book on the 8 circuits of consciousness as a psychology. So
this is one of Robert Anton Wilson's books, right?
No, it's actually one of his friend's books. His friend was Antero Ali.
Oh.
I'll maybe once I read it, I can share it with you. So this is the threshold of consciousness. That means threshold means if you step one more step out, you're already out of it. You're out of the house. The threshold of the house means if you step over that threshold, you're out of the house. So here, the threshold of consciousness means that if you go one further step, all consciousness, all mental activity, all cognitive activity stops. That means the engine turns off. So you let go even further and you stop all activity. And when you stop all activity, that's the state called Sanya Vedayita Nirodha. Sanya is sensation, Vedayita is Vedana, feeling, and Nirodha is ending or ceasing, the ending of sensation and feeling. So that's what is truly absolutely unconscious, when you no longer experience sensation or feeling. That means all mental activity has ceased. All there is at that point is just the metabolism and the body heat in the organism. But not even this is the ultimate letting go, Jhana. So what happens at this point, just because you reach this point does not mean you wake up. This is not like an end goal. The reason you stop the mind completely is so that it can restart again. So the system can reboot. And then you start seeing step by step. From each step that we described, you start going back down and you start seeing all the lights turn on, all the systems turn on, all the systems reboot, all the programs reboot.
Yeah, the computer.
Yeah. And so noticing all the systems, you start seeing, oh my God.
So then you start to see how it works.
You start to see how it works and how
it turns on.
How it turns on, how it starts constructing and processing. And this is what allows you to see that it is your own organism, the own activity within the organism.
It's like reverse engineering.
Yeah, that's what the Buddha had to do. Because without doing it that way for him, no matter what anyone said, it wouldn't have made him see that for himself. And that's once you see how this system boots up, how it's creating the world, how it's creating the self, how it's creating all the suffering based on your own mental activity, that's when you get the Vijja Vimutti, the Vijja Vimutti, and which means the Pañña Vimutti. So here, Joana, Pañña Vimutti. Vimutti means liberation. Pañña means through wisdom or comprehension. This is the intellectual liberation. And this is the supreme letting go. This is the ultimate letting go. This is the nirvana. This is how you get to nirvana. This is the Buddha and Mahasariputta said that nirvana means the ending of all existence. So letting go completely means letting go of all existence, bhava. And that's nirvana. And this is the supreme letting go. This is how meditation really starts with letting go, although you have to do it in a roundabout way by choosing your thinking. Ultimately, you keep letting go more and more and more and more, all the way to nirvana. That's why I told you before the podcast, Jhana, that I like this clip from Vegeta, where he's talking how he was trying to reach Super Saiyan, and he was mad that Goku, his rival, had reached it already, and he went to train in a planet by himself.
You're talking about the cartoon?
I'm talking about the epic story called Dragon Ball Z, excuse me.
Yeah, because you're going to confuse the audience. They're like, where is he talking about another Zen master?
I'm pretty sure the audience knows Vegeta. Trust me. I'm pretty confident. Everyone loves Dragon Ball Z except you. Well, anyways, in that this Vegeta, this character, he talks about his experience of when he finally attained Super Saiyan. He was almost going to die, and he had to let go of everything, even letting go of wanting to be a Super Saiyan, which here is could be even letting go of wanting to be awakened. You let go of everything, and this supreme letting go, that's what nirvana is. And that's how the meditation, that's how meditation is a way of experiencing instead of way of doing, because doing means you're not letting go. So a way of experiencing, it means a way of experiencing by letting go. And I have some sutta, Pali from the suttas that backs up my claim. And here the Buddha, whenever he talked about anybody...
You sound like a lawyer.
Exhibit A. This is literally Exhibit A, because anytime anyone makes a claim, that's just a claim, and that's fine. It is just a claim. And you can take it and use it, or take it and throw it away. But everyone, if you're going to make a claim, have at least some substance, especially if you're going to call it the Buddha's Dhamma. So there is a way that the Buddha says that someone attains awakening, someone becomes an arahant. And usually it's followed by a phrase in Pali. It says, anupādāya, āsavehi, cittam, vimuttam. So anupādāya, I know, right? Anupādāya means letting go or not personalizing. Because upadana means personalizing. Upa means inside, dana means giving. So here it's the opposite of giving. You're taking it inside. You're personalizing. You're holding on to it. Anupādāya means when you put an A in front of something, that means the opposite. So you're not personalizing. You're not holding on to it. You're letting go. Āsavehi is the influences. Cittam is the mind. Here the mood, but here it means the whole mind. Because in reality, there's no separation. And vimuttam is the liberation. So in Pali, it always says it, and you want to translate it to English, you say it opposite, starting from the end. So vimuttam means freeing. Cittam means your mind. Āsavehi means of all influences. Anupādāya, by letting go. So he's saying that someone who frees their mind of all influences by letting go. And I went to the sutra called the Nanda Sutra, where he talks about his half-brother who only became a monastic because the Buddha tricked him into becoming a monastic. He gave him his bowl and never...
Wait, the Buddha had a half-brother?
Yes, because kings back then had tons of wives and tons of children.
And his name was Vimutta?
No, his name was Nanda.
Nanda? Nanda. Is he the one who kept trying to kill him?
No, that's Devadatta, and that was his cousin.
Okay.
So Nanda was his half-brother. He was engaged to be married to this beautiful girl. And the Buddha went to visit his hometown. He gave Nanda, told him to hold his bowl, the Buddha's bowl, and then he started walking back to the monastery or to wherever he was staying. And Nanda, the cousin, the brother, half-brother, he could not say, "Hey, Buddha, take your bowl back. I got to stay with my girl." So he just kept following him, holding the bowl. And then when they got to where the Buddha was staying, he told Nanda, "All right, come here, bhikkhu. Like you're going to become a monk now."
He did that on purpose.
Oh yeah. And then Nanda was so unhappy. He was so unhappy, and he would see his wife or his fiance, and she would try to tempt him to come back, and he was so unhappy. So the Buddha that's where I told you the story where the Buddha had to take him to see these angel women. They call them celestial nymphs. And so he could see how much more gorgeous they are than even his fiance. And the Buddha told him, "Hey, if you practice our teachings and as a monk, I guarantee you're going to get all these as many celestial girls as you want." And so Nanda said, "Hell yeah, let's do it." And then all his companions in the holy life started making fun of him, saying, "Look at Nanda. He's he's a lowlife who's only practicing to get women." and they started making fun of him, and he got really sad. So he went to practice in the woods, and he attained awakening. And then these angels came to the Buddha and said, "Oh, Ananda attained awakening." And so Ananda went to the Buddha, and Ananda told him, "Bhante, I have attained awakening. I really please let go of my deal where you said that I would get these women when I practice this practice." And then the Buddha said, "Ananda, at the point where you freed your mind from all influences by letting go, at that point you were released from your deal with me." So he used the phrase.
So you're saying that Ananda?
No, Nanda.
Nanda. You're saying that Nanda became an arahant?
He became an arahant. And the Buddha not only said he became an arahant, he said how he became an arahant. He said, at the point, Nanda, that you freed your mind of all emotional influences by letting go, at that point, you freed yourself from this deal. So he's saying you became an arahant by freeing your mind of all influences by letting go. Anupādāya, āsavehi, cittam, vimuttam. So this is why I make my claim that this meditation is a letting go. That's why meditation is a way of experiencing, not a way of doing, because you don't want to do anything. You got to let go. Let go is the not doing. That's what let go means, not doing. And that's, I'll get off my soapbox now. That's all I had to say. I know it's probably going to be our first 3-hour podcast, which actually makes me happy.
Whoa.
My goal is to do a 4-hour podcast once, and the real ones will listen to it all. And now that I've talked for so much, Joana, anything you want to add at the end?
I just want to say thank you, Juan, for answering all my questions and for helping me understand the different levels of jhanas and the path to Nibbana.
Yeah. Now you know what you got, what you have to do in your upcoming retreat, huh?
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. No, just remember, Joana, let go, let go, let go. It's honestly, it's just attention and letting go. Attention and letting go. That's all it is. Attention and letting go. Attention and letting go. It's this alert relaxation. Alert relaxation. There's no emotional hindrance stronger than letting go, stronger than relaxing. Remember the phrase that the Buddha said about Nanda. As soon as you freed your mind of all influences by letting go, that's when I knew you had become an arahant and were freed from all obligations. And that's what everyone's looking for, freedom from all obligations.
Yeah, the being a puppet.
That's the Nibbana. That's the supreme letting go. Whew. I couldn't even. I forced that even. Yeah, so that's Nibbana. And anyone who has made it this far, thank you guys. You are loyal, and you value Dhamma. So thank you. And I guess I should end it here before I talk forever. I just want to say, Joana, you're going to be off the next 2 weeks going into Jhanas. And that means that I'll have a guest host next week. And hopefully I'm planning on having a blast from the past in my life. I will save the person for everyone. If you want to know who's going to be co-host.
Surprise guest.
It's a surprise guest co-host. And it's not Bhante Sanata Vihari because he'll be on the retreat with you, Joana.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a surprise because he's already been a surprise.
Yeah. So it's a new person. I think everyone would like him or like them. And yeah, that's it. So thank you everyone for listening. Remember, this is why I end every podcast from now on, to remember to let go and become liberated. And may you all be well, happy, comfortable, and peaceful. And may you live with ease. Sukhi Hotu.
become liberated. Become liberated. And when you find out, you see, that there isn't any way of forcing it, that for most people is the only way of getting them to stop forcing it. Because they won't believe when you tell them in the first instance, you've got to do this without forcing it. They'll say, well, it won't work, it won't happen, because I'm very unevolved. I'm just an ordinary human being. I'm just poor little me. And if I don't force it, nothing will happen. I have people who think that if they don't struggle and strain, they won't have a bowel movement, or whatever it is. They think they've got to do that work in order to make it happen. In other words, all that is based on lack of faith, not trusting life. And to get people to trust life, you don't trust it. You have to trick them. They won't jump into the water, so you have to throw them in. And if they are very unwilling to be thrown in, they're going to take diving lessons, you see, in which they're going to go all through, they're going to read books about diving, they're going to do all the preliminary exercises for diving, they're going to stand on the edge of the diving board and inquire whether there's the right posture until somebody comes up beside and kicks them in the butt. And they're in the water, and they're in the water. Become liberated. Become liberated. Become liberated. Become liberated. Become liberated. liberated. And when you find out, you see, that there isn't any way of forcing it, that for most people is the only way of getting them to stop forcing it. Because they won't believe when you tell them in the first instance, you've got to do this without forcing it. They'll say, well, it won't work, it won't happen, because I'm very unevolved. I'm just an ordinary human being, I'm just poor little me. And if I don't force it, nothing will happen. I have people who think that if they don't struggle and strain, they won't have a bowel movement, or whatever it is. They think they've got to do that work in order to make it happen. In other words, all that is based on lack of faith, not trusting life. And to get people to trust life who don't trust it, you have to trick them. They won't jump into the water, so you have to throw them in. And if they're very unwilling to be thrown in, they're going to take diving lessons, you see, in which they're going to go all through, they're going to read books about diving, they're going to do all the preliminary exercises for diving, they're going to stand on the edge of the diving board and inquire whether there's the right posture until somebody comes up beside and kicks them in the butt. And they're in the water, and they're in the water, and they're in the water. Become liberated. 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 Liberated.